Uma, a Krenim student at the Galactic Academy of Sciences, sheds her outer garment and positions herself on the sterile examination table. The high-tech laboratory aboard the orbiting space station falls silent as human and alien students gather around, their eyes fixed on the unprecedented scene unfolding before them. Raymond Turner, a gifted human biology major, steps forward. His heart races as he grasps the gravity of the moment. The Krenim, long secretive about their physiology, have never allowed such an intimate study. Uma's unexpected volunteering during their routine interspecies biology class has created a tense atmosphere charged with scientific curiosity and unspoken cultural taboos. The space station, a neutral hub for interspecies collaboration, now serves as a stage for a potentially groundbreaking examination. Raymond's fingers tighten around the advanced medical scanner, his mind racing with the implications of this opportunity. Human understanding of alien biology could leap forward by decades in the next few minutes. As Raymond begins the examination, his eyes widen. Uma's internal organ arrangement defies all previous assumptions about Krenim physiology. A secondary cardiovascular system pulses beneath her skin, and an unknown glandular structure near her brain stem emits faint bioelectrical signals. The human students lean in, their collective breath held. Alien classmates shuffle nervously, some averting their eyes, others watching with rapt attention. The atmosphere grows heavy with a mix of fascination, discomfort, and palpable excitement. Raymond's hands move methodically over Uma's body, the scanner revealing layer after layer of surprising anatomical features. He notices Uma's physiological responses changing, indicating what appears to be a mating response. The ethical implications hit him like a shockwave, forcing him to pause momentarily. Swallowing hard, Raymond continues. The potential for advancing human knowledge outweighs his personal discomfort. He uncovers a series of bioluminescent markings on Uma's skin, pulsing in sync with her emotional and physiological state. This discovery alone could revolutionize non-invasive medical diagnostics and interspecies communication. As the examination progresses, Raymond becomes acutely aware of the shifting dynamics in the room. Some human students watch with unconcealed jealousy, while others frantically take notes. The alien students' reactions range from clinical interest to visible distress at the intimate nature of the procedure. Uma's body continues to reveal its secrets. Each new discovery sends ripples of excitement through the assembled students. The implications for interspecies medical treatments and potential military applications become increasingly clear. Humanity's position in the galactic community could shift dramatically based on the knowledge gained in this single-class session. Raymond's mind races with possibilities. Non-invasive diagnostic techniques, enhanced communication methods, and a deeper understanding of alien biology all seem within reach. Yet, as he continues his thorough examination, he can't shake the feeling that this intimate encounter with Uma may have far-reaching personal and political consequences. The plot point concludes with Raymond realizing the full weight of the situation. In his hands lies the potential to revolutionize human understanding of alien biology. But as Uma's bioluminescent markings pulse beneath his fingertips, he knows that the complications arising from this unexpected volunteer session are only beginning to unfold. Raymond's fingers lingered on Uma's skin. The pulsing bioluminescent markings beneath his touch a stark reminder of the unprecedented nature of this examination. As he carefully withdrew his hands, the weight of the moment settled over the laboratory. The air crackled with unspoken tension and scarcely controlled excitement. Before Raymond could fully process the implications of what had just transpired, the laboratory doors slid open with a soft hiss. Dr. Xander Voss, the Academy's dean, strode in, his Arcturian features set in a grim expression. "Mr. Turner, Ms. Uma, your presence is required immediately. The news of this examination has spread faster than anticipated." Raymond and Uma exchanged a glance, her bioluminescent markings flickering with what he now recognized as a mix of anxiety and excitement. As they followed Dr. Voss through the station's sleek corridors, Raymond's mind raced. The intimate nature of the examination, the groundbreaking discoveries, the potential fallout. It all swirled in his thoughts, leaving him dizzy with the possibilities and pitfalls that lay ahead. They arrived at the Academy's press room, a large, circular chamber designed to accommodate various species. The room buzzed with activity, filled with an assortment of reporters from across the galaxy. Hovering camera drones whirred overhead, their lenses focused intently on the podium where Dr. Voss now stood. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all designations," Dr. Voss began, his voice amplified throughout the chamber. "We are here to address the unprecedented interspecies examination that took place in our xenobiology lab earlier today. I present to you Raymond Turner, the human biology major who conducted the examination, and Uma, our Krenim volunteer." Raymond stepped forward, his heart pounding. The sea of alien faces before him seemed to stretch endlessly, each pair of eyes fixed upon him with intense curiosity. He cleared his throat, preparing to speak, when a commotion at the back of the room drew everyone's attention. The Krenim ambassador, Zaraketh, pushed her way through the crowd, her iridescent scales shimmering with agitation. "This is outrageous," she exclaimed, her voice carrying across the room. "The Krenim people have maintained our physiological privacy for millennia. What right did you have to conduct such an invasive examination?" Before Raymond could respond, Uma stepped forward. "Ambassador Keth, with all due respect, I volunteered for this examination. As a student of science, I believe that progress can only be achieved through openness and collaboration." The ambassador's scales rippled, a clear sign of her displeasure. "Your individual choice does not negate centuries of Krenim tradition, young one." As the two Krenim engaged in a heated debate, Raymond noticed movement to his left. General Marcus Steele, an imposing figure in a crisp military uniform, approached the podium. "Mr. Turner," he said, his voice low and gravelly, "I'm particularly interested in the unique cardiovascular system you discovered. Could you elaborate on its potential applications?" Raymond hesitated, recognizing the thinly veiled interest in military advantages. "General, while the discovery is fascinating from a scientific standpoint, it's premature to discuss any potential applications beyond medical research." A chittering sound interrupted them as Dr. Lerna, a Vespid xenobiologist, pushed her way to the front. Her compound eyes gleamed under the bright lights of the press room. "This entire situation is absurd," she buzzed. "Human perception is inherently flawed when it comes to non-humanoid anatomies. How can we trust these findings?" Raymond felt a surge of frustration. "Dr. Lerna, while I acknowledge the limitations of human perception, the advanced scanner we use provides objective data that can be verified by scientists of any species." As the debate intensified, with voices rising and reporters shouting questions, Raymond felt a gentle touch on his arm. He turned to see Uma, her bioluminescent markings pulsing with a pattern he hadn't seen before. She leaned in close, her voice barely above a whisper. "Raymond, I want to continue with the study. More extensive examinations. There's so much more to discover." Raymond's eyes widened in surprise. Before he could respond, Dr. Voss's voice cut through the chaos. "Order, please. In light of these developments, the Academy proposes the formation of an interspecies research team to continue this study under controlled conditions. Mr. Turner will lead the human contingent, with Uma as the primary Krenim subject." The announcement sent a fresh wave of excitement through the room. As reporters clamored for more details, Raymond caught sight of Dr. Lerna and General Steele exchanging meaningful glances. It was clear that both would be vying for positions on the research team, adding layers of complexity to an already delicate situation. As the press conference drew to a close, Raymond found himself at the center of a whirlwind of attention. Reporters pressed in from all sides, each seeking exclusive comments or insights. Through the chaos, His eyes met Uma's across the room. The look she gave him seemed to convey more than just scientific curiosity, hinting at the uncharted personal territory they were about to enter. Raymond took a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenges ahead. The examination had been just the beginning. Now, as he prepared to lead this groundbreaking interspecies study, he realized that the true test of his skills, both as a scientist and as a diplomat, was only just beginning. As the press conference drew to a close, Raymond found himself swept along by a tide of excitement and apprehension. The cacophony of voices faded as he followed Dr. Voss through the station's winding corridors, Uma close behind. The dean's measured stride belied the urgency of their situation. "We've prepared a secure laboratory for your team," Dr. Voss explained, his voice low. "Given the sensitive nature of this research, we've implemented enhanced security protocols." They arrived at a nondescript door, indistinguishable from the others lining the hallway. Dr. Voss placed his hand on a biometric scanner, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, the laboratory hummed with activity. Advanced scanning equipment lined the walls, and holographic displays flickered to life as they entered. Raymond's eyes widened as he took in the array of cutting-edge technology. "This is incredible," he breathed, running his hand along the smooth surface of a nearby console. Uma stepped forward, her bioluminescent markings pulsing with a pattern that Raymond now recognized as excitement. "Shall we begin?" she asked, her voice tinged with eagerness. Before Raymond could respond, the door opened again. Dr. Lerna, the Vespid xenobiologist, entered, her compound eyes scanning the room critically. Close behind her, General Marcus Steele's imposing figure filled the doorway. "I trust the setup meets your requirements, Dr. Lerna?" Dr. Voss inquired. The Vespid chittered softly. "It will suffice," she conceded, moving to inspect her designated workstation. General Steele remained near the entrance, his presence a silent reminder of the military's vested interest in their work. Raymond felt a twinge of unease but pushed it aside, focusing on the task at hand. "Uma, if you're ready, we can start with a full-body scan," Raymond said, gesturing towards a raised platform in the center of the room. Uma nodded, slipping off her outer garments to reveal a specially designed medical gown that accommodated her unique physiology. As she positioned herself on the platform, Raymond activated the holographic imaging system. A three-dimensional model of Uma's body materialized above the platform, rotating slowly. Raymond leaned in, his eyes widening as he took in the intricate details of her internal structure. "Fascinating," he murmured. "Uma, your secondary cardiovascular system. It's connected to a series of subcutaneous glands I didn't notice before." Dr. Lerna moved closer, her antennae twitching with interest. "These glands," she buzzed, "they appear to be secreting some sort of bioluminescent fluid." Raymond nodded, enhancing the image. "Look at this network of microscopic channels. The fluid flows through them, creating those patterns we see on her skin." As they continued their examination, Raymond applied a series of biosensors to various parts of Uma's body. The crenim's bioluminescent markings pulsed and shifted, responding to each touch. "Uma, can you describe what you're feeling?" Raymond asked, his voice hushed. Uma's eyes met his, her markings intensifying. "It's pleasant," she replied, her voice slightly breathless. "Especially when you touch certain areas." Raymond felt a flush creep up his neck, acutely aware of the intimacy of the situation. He cleared his throat, turning to the holographic display. "There seems to be a correlation between the intensity of the patterns and, pleasurable sensations." Dr. Lerna, her initial skepticism fading, leaned in to examine the data scrolling across her screen. "We should conduct comparative tests," she suggested. "Volunteers from other species, including humans, could provide valuable baseline data." Before Raymond could respond, General Steele stepped forward. "What about more invasive examinations?" he asked, his eyes fixed on Uma's glandular system. If we could analyze the composition of that bioluminescent fluid. Raymond stiffened. I don't think that's necessary, General. We can gather plenty of data through non-invasive means. Uma sat up, her markings pulsing with a new pattern. I'm willing to undergo more extensive tests, she said, her voice firm, if it will further our understanding. Raymond turned to her, surprise and concern etched on his face. Uma, you don't have a dash. I want to, she interrupted, her eyes meeting his. This is important, Raymond. We have an opportunity to push the boundaries of interspecies understanding. As the day progressed, tension in the lab grew. Raymond found himself torn between his scientific curiosity and his growing protectiveness towards Uma. The Krenim volunteer submitted to increasingly intimate examinations, her bioluminescent patterns shifting and pulsing with each new test. It was during one such test that they made their most significant discovery. Raymond, carefully analyzing a sample of Uma's bioluminescent fluid, let out a gasp of surprise. This is incredible, he exclaimed, gesturing for the others to join him. When introduced to human tissue samples, these compounds demonstrate remarkable healing properties. The lab erupted into a flurry of activity. Dr. Lerna buzzed with excitement. Her skepticism fully evaporated. General Steele's eyes gleamed with barely concealed interest, no doubt envisioning the military applications of such a discovery. As the day drew to a close and the other researchers filed out, Raymond found himself alone with Uma. The Krenim approached him, her markings pulsing softly in the dimmed light of the lab. Thank you, she said softly, placing a hand on his arm, for your concern earlier, for looking out for me. Raymond felt a warmth spread through him at her touch. Of course, he replied, his voice equally soft. I just want to make sure you're comfortable with everything we're doing here. Uma stepped closer, her bioluminescent patterns intensifying. Raymond watched, fascinated, as intricate swirls of light danced across her skin. He realized with a start that he was beginning to understand the emotions behind the patterns, gratitude, trust, and something else, something deeper. As they stood there, close enough to feel the warmth of each other's bodies, Raymond became acutely aware of the line they were towing. This was more than just scientific inquiry now. The connection forming between them transcended the boundaries of their research, venturing into uncharted emotional territory. Uma's markings pulsed once more, a pattern Raymond hadn't seen before. He found himself reaching out, his fingers hovering just above her skin, drawn to the mesmerizing display. The air between them seemed to crackle with unspoken potential. Raymond pulled his hand back, his heart racing. We should, prepare for tomorrow's tests, he said, his voice slightly hoarse. Uma nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Of course, she replied. There is still so much to discover. As they moved to tidy up the lab, Raymond's mind whirled with the implications of the day's events. The groundbreaking discoveries, the potential applications of Krenim biochemistry, the deepening connection between him and Uma, it all pointed to a future filled with both promise and peril. Little did they know, as they prepared for the next day's research, that their discoveries were about to send shockwaves through the galactic community, forever altering the delicate balance of interspecies relations. As Raymond and Uma left the lab that evening, both were acutely aware of the momentous discoveries they had made and the uncharted waters they were about to navigate. The next morning, Raymond arrived at the laboratory early, his mind buzzing with ideas for the day's experiments. To his surprise, he found Uma already there, her bioluminescent patterns pulsating with an intensity he hadn't seen before. You're here early, he said, unable to keep a smile from his face. Uma turned to him, her markings shifting to a pattern he now recognized as excitement. I couldn't sleep, she admitted. There's so much more to explore, Raymond. They shared a moment of unspoken connection, the air between them charged with possibility. Raymond found himself drawn to the intricate dance of light across Uma's skin, a mesmerizing display that seemed to echo his own racing thoughts. The moment was broken by the sound of the lab door sliding open. Dr. Xanda Voss entered, her usual composed demeanor slightly ruffled. Behind her strode a tall, regal figure that Raymond immediately recognized as a Krenim, though one he had never seen before. "Mr. Turner, Uma," Dr. Voss said, her voice tight with barely concealed tension. "Allow me to introduce Ambassador Zara Keth of the Krenim Confederation." The ambassador's eyes, a deep violet that seemed to shimmer in the lab's bright lights, fixed on Raymond. "Dr. Turner," she said, her voice melodious yet tinged with an edge of steel. "I've heard much about your discoveries." Before Raymond could respond, the rest of the team began to file in. Dr. Lerna's antennae twitched with curiosity at the sight of the ambassador, while General Steele's eyes narrowed, his posture stiffening. As the team assembled, Raymond outlined the day's experiments, focusing on the healing properties of Uma's biochemical compounds. "We've seen remarkable results in preliminary tests," he explained, bringing up holographic displays of their previous data. "Today, we hope to demonstrate these effects more conclusively." Uma stepped forward, her markings pulsing with tenacity. "I volunteer to demonstrate," she said, her eyes meeting Raymond's. Raymond felt a surge of concern. "Uma, are you sure? We don't know the long-term effects of repeated demonstrations." "I'm sure," she replied, her voice firm. "This is too important to delay." With a reluctant nod, Raymond prepared the necessary equipment. Uma extended her arm and with a swift motion created a small cut on her skin. The room fell silent, all eyes fixed on the wound. Raymond carefully applied a synthesized version of Uma's biochemical compound to the cut. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, before their eyes, the wound began to close. Within seconds, it had healed completely, leaving no trace of a scar. Gasps of amazement filled the room. Ambassador Keth leaned in, her eyes wide with fascination. "Extraordinary," she murmured. Encouraged by the success, Dr. Lerna stepped forward. "We should test its effects on other species," she buzzed excitedly. "I have a lab assistant who recently injured a wing. Perhaps." Raymond nodded, his scientific curiosity overriding his caution. The Vespid assistant was brought in, and with their consent, Raymond applied the compound to their injured wing. The effect was immediate and unexpected. Not only did the wing heal, but the Vespid's exoskeleton began to glow with faint, Krenim-like patterns. The room erupted into chaos. General Steele's eyes gleamed with barely concealed interest. The military applications of this. He began but was cut off by Ambassador Keth. "This is Krenim biology you're experimenting with," she said, her voice sharp. "The potential for misuse is too great." As the debate intensified, Raymond noticed Uma swaying slightly. Her bioluminescent patterns were flickering erratically, a sight that sent a jolt of fear through him. "Uma," he called, moving towards her. Before he could reach her, she collapsed. Raymond rushed to her side, his heart pounding. He worked frantically, using his newly acquired knowledge of Krenim physiology to stabilize her condition. The room fell silent, all arguments forgotten as they watched the drama unfold. As Uma's condition stabilized, Raymond became aware of a strange sensation on his skin. Looking down, he saw faint, bioluminescent patterns appearing on his arms, mirroring Uma's emotional responses. The implications of this development sent his knees going weak. What did this mean for human-Krenim interactions? What other changes might occur with prolonged exposure? As Uma regained consciousness, her eyes met Raymond's. Their bioluminescent patterns synchronized, creating a mesmerizing display that hinted at a connection deeper than either of them had anticipated. The moment was broken by Dr. Voss clearing her throat. "Mr. Turner, Uma," she said, her voice grave. The Galactic Council has requested a full report on our findings. I believe we've opened a door that cannot be easily closed." Raymond nodded, helping Uma to her feet. As the rest of the team began to discuss the implications of their discoveries, he found himself wondering what the future held. One thing was certain. Their work had only just begun, and the path ahead promised to be as challenging as it was exciting. Exciting as it was uncertain. Raymond took a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenges ahead. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. The Galactic Council's request for a full report sparked intense debate among the scientific community and political leaders alike. As the implications of their discoveries became clearer, the decision was made to relocate the entire research team to a more advanced facility on Earth. Raymond found himself packing up the lab, his mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. He couldn't help but notice the faint glow on his skin, a constant reminder of the changes occurring within him. Uma watched him from across the room, her own markings pulsing with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "Are you ready for this?" she asked, her voice soft. Raymond nodded, offering her a small smile. "As ready as I'll ever be. It's not every day you get to move your groundbreaking interspecies research to a state-of-the-art facility in Geneva." The journey to Earth was a blur of security protocols and medical checks. Upon arrival at the new complex, Raymond was struck by the sheer scale of the operation. The laboratory was a marvel of modern technology, with equipment he had only dreamed of using. Dr. Zanlavos gathered the team for a briefing, her usual composure slightly strained by the weight of their new responsibilities. "The eyes of the galaxy are upon us," she said, her gaze sweeping across the assembled researchers. "We must proceed with the utmost caution and care." As they settled into their new routines, Raymond couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had changed. His skin tingled constantly, and he found himself increasingly attuned to Uma's presence. He caught her watching him during their work, her markings shifting in patterns he was beginning to understand on an instinctive level. One evening, as the rest of the team filed out of the lab, Uma approached Raymond. "I've been thinking," she said, her markings pulsing with a pattern he now recognized as curiosity. "We've been so focused on the biological aspects of our research, but there's so much more to explore about our cultures, our ways of being." Raymond felt a flutter in his chest, acutely aware of the subtext in her words. "What did you have in mind?" Uma's markings intensified. "A cultural exchange of sorts. After hours, of course. There's still so much I don't understand about humans, and I imagine you have questions about Krenim." The next few weeks saw Raymond and Uma engaging in clandestine meetings after the official research hours. They explored the nuances of their respective anatomies, comparing notes on sensory experiences and physiological responses. Raymond found himself fascinated by the intricacies of Uma's bioluminescent patterns, while she marveled at the complexity of human emotional expressions. As their cultural exchange sessions progressed, the line between scientific inquiry and personal intimacy began to blur. Raymond found himself drawn to Uma in ways he couldn't quite articulate, their connection deepening with each interaction. During one such session, as they examined the synchronization of their bioluminescent patterns, Uma reached out to touch Raymond's arm. The moment her fingers made contact, a jolt of sensation coursed through both of them. Their markings erupted in a dazzling display of light, perfectly in sync. Raymond gasped, overwhelmed by the intensity of the connection. He could feel Uma's heartbeat as if it were his own, their nervous systems inexplicably linked. The room seemed to fade away as they lost themselves in the shared experience. Suddenly, the lights in the lab flickered and surged. Equipment sparked and sputtered, overloaded by the energy emanating from their synchronized bioluminescence. The moment was shattered as emergency protocols kicked in, plunging the lab into darkness. As they stood there, breathing heavily in the dim glow of their own light, Raymond realized that they had crossed the threshold. Whatever was happening between them was more than just biology, or cultural exchange. It was something new, something that could change everything. The incident did not go unnoticed. The next morning, Dr. Voss called Raymond into her office, her expression grave. "Mr. Turner," she said, her voice tight with concern, "we've detected some unusual energy readings from the lab last night. Care to explain?" Before Raymond could formulate a response, the door burst open. General Steele strode in, his eyes gleaming with awe-inspiring excitement. "Doctor, have you seen these readings?" he demanded, brandishing a data pad. "The power output is off the charts. If we could harness this energy—" Dr. Voss held up a hand, silencing him. "General, need I remind you that we are here to conduct scientific research, not develop new weapons technologies?" As the two argued, Raymond's mind raced. He knew he should come clean about the after-hours sessions with Uma, but something held him back. The connection they had discovered felt too precious, too personal to subject to the cold scrutiny of military interests. Just then, a commotion outside drew their attention. Through the office window, Raymond could see a crowd gathering at the facility's gates. Signs waved above the throng, some supporting interspecies cooperation, others denouncing it in harsh terms. Dr. Voss sighed, rubbing her temples. "It seems our work has caught the public's attention. Mr. Turner, I suggest you and Uma keep a low profile for the time being. We can't afford any more incidents." As Raymond left the office, his skin tingling with residual energy, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of something monumental. The path ahead was fraught with danger and uncertainty, but the potential for discovery, both scientific and personal, was too great to ignore. He found Uma in the lab, her markings pulsing with concern. As their eyes met, a wordless understanding passed between them. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The true nature of their connection and its implications for human-Krenim relations was yet to be fully understood. But one thing was certain: there was no turning back now. The calm of the Geneva facility shattered in an instant. Alarms blared, red lights flashed, and the sound of breaking glass echoed through the corridors. Raymond and Uma, still in the lab after their latest session, exchanged a look of shock as the facility's security system announced a breach. "Attention all personnel. Security breach detected. Initiating lockdown protocols." Raymond's heart raced as he realized the gravity of the situation. "The terrestrial purity front," he muttered, recalling the protesters they'd seen outside the facility gates. "They've actually breached the perimeter." Uma's markings pulsed with alarm. "We need to secure the research," she said, moving swiftly to the data terminals. As they worked to encrypt and protect their findings, the lab's doors suddenly sealed shut with a pneumatic hiss. They were trapped. "Raymond? Uma, can you hear me?" Dr. Elena Rossi's voice crackled through the lab's communication system. "We're here, Elena," Raymond responded, relief flooding through him at the sound of a familiar voice. "What's happening out there?" The extremists have accessed the lower levels. Elena's voice was tense. "They're after your research. The synthesized Krenim compounds. If they get their hands on those." Uma's markings flashed with concern. Raymond nodded grimly. They could weaponize them. As the gravity of their situation sank in, Raymond felt a strange sensation. The bioluminescent patterns on his skin began to pulse in sync with Uma's. Their eyes met, and suddenly, it was as if their minds had merged. Ideas flowed between them at lightning speed. Complex problems unraveled in seconds. Raymond gasped as he realized what was happening. "Uma, our connection. It's enhancing our cognitive abilities." Together, they turned their newfound synergy to the problem at hand. Within minutes, they had formulated an escape plan. Using their combined bioluminescence, they manipulated the lab's electronic lock, overriding its complex security protocols. As the doors slid open, they were met with chaos. Smoke filled the corridors, and the sound of distant gunfire echoed through the facility. They moved cautiously, their shared senses on high alert. Rounding a corner, they nearly collided with a group of armed security personnel. The leader, a grizzled man with piercing eyes, raised his weapon. "Hold your fire, Captain Hawkins," Raymond shouted, recognizing the veteran from security briefings. "We're friendlies." Hawkins lowered his weapon, his eyes narrowing as he took in Uma's alien features. "What's the Krenim doing here?" "She's with me," Raymond said firmly. "And we might be your best chance at securing the research data." Hawkins hesitated for a moment, then nodded sharply. "All right, we're heading to the central data core. Fall in." As they moved through the facility, they encountered pockets of resistance. Terrestrial Purity Front members, armed with stolen security weapons, attacked in waves. Raymond was surprised to find his reflexes sharper, his strength greater than he remembered. He moved with a fluid grace, deflecting blows and protecting Uma and the security team. Uma, for her part, used her bioluminescent patterns in ways Raymond had never seen. Bright flashes and hypnotic swirls disoriented their attackers, leaving them vulnerable to Hawkins and his team. They fought their way to the central data core, where they found Dr. Voss and General Steele attempting to evacuate with critical files. As Raymond approached to assist, a familiar voice rang out. "Stop right there." Ambassador Zaraketh strode into the room, her eyes blazing. "All Krenim-related data must be destroyed immediately. We cannot risk it falling into extremist hands." General Steele stepped forward, his face flushed with anger. "Absolutely not. This research is too valuable to lose." As the argument intensified, the facility's power grid suddenly fluctuated. Lights flickered and security systems sputtered. Taking advantage of the chaos, a new group of attackers burst into the room. At their head was a tall, charismatic man with cold eyes. "Victor Crane," he announced, his voice dripping with disdain. "And I'm here to cleanse humanity of alien influence." Raymond's blood ran cold as he recognized the name. Crane was a former military scientist, known for his extreme views on alien contact. If he got his hands on the Krenim research, Crane raised a strange, pulsing weapon. "This purification device is just the beginning. With your research, I'll rid the galaxy of all non-human life." In that moment, Raymond felt Uma's presence in his mind stronger than ever. Their bioluminescent patterns synchronized perfectly, and he knew exactly what they needed to do. Together, they focused their energy, creating a massive surge of bioluminescent power. The wave of energy washed over Crane and his team, shorting out their advanced weaponry. Captain Hawkins seized the opportunity, leading his team in a charge against the now vulnerable extremists. The room erupted into chaos as security forces clashed with the Terrestrial Purity Front. In the midst of the battle, a stray energy blast struck one of the main data servers. Sparks flew, and alarms blared as the system began to fail. "Emergency containment protocol initiated," an automated voice announced. "Sealing data core." Heavy blast doors slammed shut, trapping Raymond, Uma, Crane, and several others inside. As the sealed room's air began to thin, Raymond realized with growing dread that their fight for survival was nowhere near the end. And, as the oxygen levels continued to drop, Raymond felt a surge of panic rising in his chest. He glanced at Uma, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing rapidly with fear and drive. Suddenly, their eyes locked, and Raymond felt a jolt of energy course through his body. Their bioluminescent patterns synchronized, creating a dazzling display of light that filled the sealed room. The connection between them intensified, reaching a level they had never experienced before. As their combined energy signature grew stronger, the facility's systems began to react in unexpected ways. Lights flickered, and control panels sparked with electricity. The heavy blast doors that had trapped them inside the data core began to shudder and groan. Captain Hawkins, who had been trying to override the door controls, stepped back in amazement. What the hell is happening? Before anyone could respond, the containment protocols malfunctioned. With a loud hiss, the blast doors slid open, revealing the chaos beyond. "Everyone out now," Raymond shouted, grabbing Uma's hand and leading the charge into the corridor. As they emerged from the data core, they found themselves in the midst of a battlefield. Security forces clashed with terrestrial Purity Front members, energy weapons flashing in the smoke-filled air. Victor Crane, seizing the moment of confusion, made a desperate lunge for a nearby storage unit. His hand closed around a vial containing a sample of the synthesized Krenim biochemical compound. "Stop him!" Captain Hawkins yelled, raising his weapon. Raymond and Uma moved in unison, their heightened reflexes allowing them to close the distance to Crane in seconds. As they reached for him, Crane stumbled, the vial slipping from his grasp. Time seemed to slow as the delicate container tumbled through the air. The sound of shattering glass was barely audible over the din of battle. A fine mist of the Krenim compound enveloped Crane, clinging to his skin and seeping into his pores. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Crane's body began to convulse. He fell to his knees, clutching his chest as the skin rippled and pulsed. Before their eyes, bioluminescent patterns began to form on his flesh, spreading rapidly across his body. "Raymond, look!" Uma exclaimed, her voice a mix of fascination and horror. Crane's muscles bulged and contorted, his frame growing larger and more powerful by the second. His eyes, now glowing with an otherworldly light, locked onto Raymond and Uma. "What? What have you done to me?" Crane growled, his voice distorted and inhuman. Before they could respond, the doors at the end of the corridor burst open. Dr. Elena Rossi rushed in, followed by a team of researchers and additional security personnel. Her eyes widened as she took in the scene before her. "Containment breach," she shouted into her communicator. "Initiate full facility quarantine immediately." As alarms blared and emergency protocols engaged, Ambassador Zaraketh emerged from a side room, her face pale with shock. "By the stars," she whispered, staring at the transformed Crane. Without hesitation, she activated her personal communication device. "This is Ambassador Keth. I need an immediate connection to the Krenim High Council. Priority Alpha." General Steele pushed his way through the crowd, his eyes gleaming with a mix of fear and excitement as he gazed at Crane. "Secure that man," he barked at the security team. "We need to study this transformation." Dr. Voss, who had been helping evacuate injured personnel, whirled on Steele. "Are you insane? This is exactly the kind of weaponization we've been trying to prevent." As arguments erupted among the leadership, Raymond felt a familiar presence in his mind. Uma's thoughts intertwined with his own, and together they reached out towards Crane's newly awakened Krenim biology. Crane's bioluminescent patterns flickered and pulsed erratically as he struggled against their influence. His enhanced muscles tensed, veins bulging as he fought the invisible force trying to subdue him. "Captain Hawkins," Raymond called out, his voice strained with effort. "We can hold him, but not for long." Hawkins and his team moved swiftly, deploying energy restraints to secure Crane. As the last restraint clicked into place, Raymond and Uma released their mental hold, gasping with exertion. The corridor fell silent as everyone stared at the restrained Crane, his body still pulsing with alien light. Dr. Rossi stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her initial shock. "We need to move him to a secure lab immediately," she said, her mind already racing with potential tests and experiments. "And we need to start developing a way to stabilize his condition." As Crane was led away, surrounded by a heavy security detail, Raymond turned to Uma. Their eyes met, and a wordless understanding passed between them. Their unique bond, their ability to influence Krenim biology, might be the key to solving this crisis. Before they could discuss their next move, a new commotion arose at the far end of the corridor. A group of imposing figures strode into view, their sleek armor marking them as something beyond Earth's typical security forces. At their head was a tall, blue-skinned being with multiple eyes and a commanding presence. "I am Commander ZYXLOR of the Galactic Council Peacekeepers," the being announced, its voice resonating with authority. "By order of the Council, this facility is now under our jurisdiction." Raymond and Uma exchanged a glance, realizing that their world had just become infinitely more complicated. As they prepared to brief the newly arrived commander, they knew that the greatest challenges and opportunities still lay ahead. Raymond and Uma exchanged a wary glance as Commander ZYXLOR's imposing figure strode towards them. The blue-skinned alien's multiple eyes scanned the chaotic scene, taking in the aftermath of the recent battle and the lingering tension in the air. "Commander," Raymond began, stepping forward, "we appreciate your swift response. The situation here is complex." ZYXLOR's eyes narrowed, focusing on Raymond and Uma. "I can see that. Brief me on the current state of affairs immediately." As Raymond and Uma provided a concise summary of recent events, including Victor Crane's transformation and the potential risks of uncontrolled human-Krenim hybridization, ZYXLOR's expression grew increasingly grave. "This is a Level 7 containment scenario," the commander announced, activating a holographic display on his wrist device. "Initiate full quarantine protocols. No one enters or leaves this facility without my direct authorization." Within minutes, the Galactic Council Peacekeepers had established a secure perimeter around the Geneva facility. Force fields shimmered into existence, cutting off all unauthorized access points. Dr. Elena Rossi approached, her lab coat stained with various chemicals. "Commander, if I may, we've made progress in stabilizing the effects of the Krenim compound, but we're missing a crucial component." ZYXLOR turned his attention to the scientist. "Explain." As Dr. Rossi detailed their findings and the need for a rare mineral from the Krenim homeworld, Ambassador Zaraketh stepped forward, her earlier hesitation replaced by dedication. "I'll contact the Krenim High Council immediately," she said, activating her communication device. "We need that mineral, and we need it fast." While the ambassador negotiated with her superiors, Commander ZYXLOR organized a joint task force, combining human scientists, Krenim representatives, and Galactic Council specialists. The command center buzzed with activity as holographic displays showcased real-time data on the crisis. Captain Hawkins approached Raymond and Uma, his face etched with concern. "We've got another problem. General Steele is pushing for a covert operation to secure additional samples of the Krenim compound." Raymond's eyes widened. "That's insane. We need to neutralize it, not weaponize it." Before they could discuss further, alarms blared throughout the facility. Dr. Voss burst into the command center, his face pale. "Victor Crane has escaped containment." The room erupted into chaos as security feeds displayed Crane's path of destruction through the facility. His body pulsed with alien bioluminescence as he tore through reinforced doors and disabled security systems with ease. "He's heading for the communication center," Uma realized, her patterns flickering rapidly. Raymond nodded, understanding her unspoken plan. Together, they closed their eyes, reaching out with their combined bioluminescent network. They sensed Crane's presence, a chaotic storm of energy moving through the facility. "We can track him," Raymond announced to the commander. "But his physiology is becoming increasingly unstable. He's a danger to himself and everyone around him." As they relayed Crane's position to the security teams, the escaped hybrid reached the communication center. Screens throughout the facility flickered to life, displaying Crane's transformed visage. "Citizens of Earth," he began, his voice distorted and inhuman. "Witness the dawn of a new era. We stand on the brink of evolution, and I am its harbinger." Commander Zoexlor's multiple eyes narrowed as he assessed the escalating crisis. We need that mineral now. I'll lead the mission to Eridani for myself. The commander quickly assembled a team. Raymond Uma, Captain Hawkins, and a Krenim scientist named Lyra Taith. As they prepared for departure, reports flooded in of coordinated attacks by the Terrestrial Purity Front on alien embassies and research facilities worldwide. It's a diversion, Hawkins realized. They're planning another attack on this facility. Dr. Rossi approached the team, her arms full of data pads and sample containers. I've started mass-producing the suppression agent. We'll be ready as soon as you return with the final component. As Raymond and Uma boarded Commander Zoexlor's sleek starship, they felt the weight of their mission pressing down on them. The fate of human-alien relations hung in the balance. The ship's engines hummed to life, its advanced technology allowing for a smooth ascent through Earth's atmosphere. As they broke free of the planet's gravitational pull, Uma turned to Raymond, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "Our bond," she said softly. "It's growing stronger. I can sense your thoughts more clearly than ever." Raymond nodded, feeling the same heightened connection. Whatever we face on Eridani 4, we'll face it together. As the starship engaged its faster-than-light drive, preparing to jump to the Krenim Research Outpost, a final transmission from Earth reached them. Victor Crane's manifesto had gone viral, igniting a global media frenzy and further inflaming tensions between humans and aliens. Commander Zoexlor's voice rang out through the ship's intercom. "Prepare for FDL jump. Our mission is clear. Retrieve the mineral, stabilize the compound, and prevent a full-scale interspecies war. Failure is not an option." The stars outside the view screen blurred into streaks of light as the ship leapt into hyperspace, carrying Raymond, Uma, and their teammates towards an uncertain future on Eridani 4. The starship emerged from hyperspace, the blue-green orb of Eridani 4 growing larger in the view screen. Raymond and Uma stood side by side, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing in sync as they gazed at the alien world. "We're approaching the designated landing coordinates," Captain Hawkins announced, his fingers dancing across the control panel. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. Commander Zoexlor's multiple eyes widened as he assessed the situation. Krenim Defense Fleet detected. They're moving to intercept. Lyra Taith, the Krenim scientist, rushed to the command console. "This doesn't make sense. We have diplomatic clearance from the High Council." "It seems they didn't get the memo," Hawkins muttered, his hands hovering over the weapon systems. Commander Zoexlor raised a hand, silencing the crew. "No, we can't risk a diplomatic incident. Engage cloaking technology immediately." The ship shimmered and vanished from view as the advanced cloaking systems activated. The tension in the air was palpable as they watched the Krenim vessels sweep past their position, searching for the phantom intruder. "We need to alter our trajectory," Zoexlor ordered. "Aim for the mountainous region in the northern hemisphere. We'll have to make landfall away from the spaceport." As the ship descended through the atmosphere, Raymond and Uma felt a strange sensation wash over them. Their connection, already strong, seemed to intensify in the presence of Eridani Ivy's unique energy field. "Raymond," Uma whispered, her patterns flickering rapidly. "Can you feel that?" He nodded, a mix of excitement and apprehension coursing through him. "It's like our abilities are being amplified somehow." The ship touched down in a rugged valley, concealed by dense, alien vegetation. Massive trees with bioluminescent leaves towered overhead, casting an eerie glow across the landscape. As the team disembarked, Captain Hawkins immediately began setting up a defensive perimeter. "Stay alert," he warned. "We don't know what kind of wildlife we might encounter here." Lyra Taith activated a handheld device, its screen displaying a complex array of data. "I'm calibrating our scanners to locate the nearest entrance to the underground research outpost." It should only take a few minutes. Raymond and Uma stepped away from the group, their heightened senses taking in the alien environment. The air was thick with unfamiliar scents and strange, chittering sounds echoed from the depths of the forest. Suddenly, Uma froze, her patterns flashing in alarm. Raymond, something's coming. Before anyone could react, a massive creature burst from the underbrush. It resembled a nightmarish fusion of an Earth saber-toothed tiger and a deep-sea anglerfish, its body covered in pulsing bioluminescent patterns. Captain Hawkins raised his weapon, but Raymond held up a hand. "Wait, we've got this." In perfect unison, Raymond and Uma reached out with their minds, their combined bioluminescent network interfacing with the creature's own patterns. The beast stopped in its tracks, its savage growl fading to a low rumble. "Fascinating," Lyra Tate breathed, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. "You're communicating with it on a fundamental biological level." Commander ZYXLOR nodded approvingly. "Well done, but we need to keep moving. There's no telling how many more of these creatures are out there." As the team began their trek through the harsh terrain, Raymond and Uma took point, their enhanced abilities proving invaluable in detecting and avoiding the dangerous wildlife. They navigated treacherous ravines, crossed fields of carnivorous plants, and evaded swarms of bioluminescent insects that seemed drawn to their unique energy signatures. After hours of grueling travel, Lyra Tate's device began to beep insistently. "We're close," she announced. "The entrance should be just beyond that ridge." As they crested the hill, a hidden door set into the mountainside came into view. Lyra approached the access panel, her fingers flying across the keypad as she input a series of complex codes. The door slid open with a hiss, revealing a dimly lit corridor stretching into the depths of the mountain. As the team cautiously entered the facility, signs of recent violence became apparent. Scorch marks marred the walls, and broken equipment littered the floor. "Something's wrong," Captain Hawkins muttered, his weapon at the ready. "This place looks like it's been attacked." They made their way deeper into the complex, the eerie silence broken only by the occasional spark from damaged circuitry. Suddenly, a group of figures emerged from a side passage, their Krenim features twisted with anger and fear. At their head stood a tall, imposing Krenim with piercing eyes and intricate bioluminescent markings. He raised a strange, organic-looking weapon, his voice cold and unyielding. "I am Dr. Kael'vor," he announced, "and you are trespassing in a restricted Krenim facility. Surrender your weapons immediately, or face the consequences of your intrusion." Raymond and Uma exchanged a glance, their heightened connection allowing for silent communication. As Commander ZYXLOR stepped forward to negotiate, they prepared to use their amplified abilities, knowing that the next few moments could determine not only the success of their mission, but potentially the future of human-Krenim relations. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife as both sides stood their ground, neither willing to back down in this high-stakes confrontation deep within the heart of Eridani IV. For, as the standoff intensified, a sudden commotion erupted from a nearby corridor. A group of Krenim scientists burst into the room, led by a tall, slender woman with intricate bioluminescent patterns swirling across her skin. "Dr. Vor, stand down," she commanded, her voice ringing with authority. "I am Dr. Lyraven, and these outsiders are here under the authority of the High Council." Dr. Vor's eyes narrowed, his weapon still trained on the team. "Ven, you traitor, you've been working with the humans all along, haven't you?" "Not with the humans," Dr. Ven replied calmly. "With anyone who seeks to bridge the gap between our species. Our research could revolutionize interspecies cooperation, Vor. Don't throw it all away now." Commander ZYXLOR, sensing an opportunity, stepped forward. "Dr. Ven, we're here for the rare mineral needed to stabilize the hybridization compound on Earth. If you can assist us, the Galactic Council would be most grateful." Dr. Ven nodded, "We know of your mission, Commander. My team and I have been monitoring the situation on Earth. We believe our research could be invaluable in resolving this crisis, but we need your help to continue our work safely." As the two groups cautiously lowered their weapons, Raymond and Uma exchanged glances. Their heightened connection allowed them to sense the sincerity in Dr. Ven's words. "We can trust her," Uma whispered to Raymond, her patterns pulsing with certainty. Dr. Vore, realizing he was outnumbered, reluctantly lowered his weapon. "This is a mistake, Ven. The humans will betray us all." "Perhaps," Dr. Ven replied. "But isn't that a risk worth taking for the sake of progress?" With the immediate threat neutralized, Dr. Ven quickly outlined her proposal to Commander ZYXLOR and the team. Her research combined Krenim bioluminescent technology with advanced neural interfaces, pushing the boundaries of what was possible in interspecies communication and cooperation. "If we can continue our work on Earth," she explained, "we might be able to find a long-term solution to the hybridization problem. But we need to act fast. The Krenim Defense Fleet is already on its way, and they won't distinguish between friend and foe." Captain Hawkins, ever pragmatic, spoke up. "That's all well and good, but we still need to secure that mineral and get out of here. Any ideas on how to do that with a battle fleet breathing down our necks?" Dr. Ven smiled, her patterns shimmering with excitement. "As a matter of fact, Captain, I do. Follow me." The combined group moved swiftly through the facility, Dr. Ven leading them towards the mineral storage vault. As they navigated the winding corridors, distant explosions rocked the complex, sending dust and debris raining down from the ceiling. "The defense fleet has begun their attack," Dr. Vore growled, reluctantly cooperating with the group. "We don't have much time." As they approached the vault, they encountered heavy resistance from Dr. Vore's loyalists who hadn't received the stand-down order. Captain Hawkins quickly organized a defensive formation. "Raymond, Uma," he called out, "we'll create a diversion. You two use your abilities to bypass the vault security systems and retrieve the mineral." Without hesitation, Raymond and Uma sprinted towards a vault entrance, their bodies moving in perfect synchronization. As energy blasts and shouts filled the air behind them, they placed their hands on the vault's control panel. Their combined bioluminescent network interface with the Krenim technology, creating a dazzling light show as they navigated the complex security protocols. Within moments, the massive vault door slid open with a satisfying hiss. "We're in," Raymond shouted, rushing inside with Uma close behind. They quickly located the rare mineral, its crystalline structure pulsing with an otherworldly energy. As Uma secured the sample in a specialized containment unit, another violent tremor shook the facility. "The cave system is becoming unstable," Dr. Ven's voice crackled over the comm system. "We need to evacuate immediately." Raymond and Uma raced back to the group, the precious mineral safely in hand. Dr. Ven led them deeper into the complex, away from the sounds of battle echoing through the corridors. "Where are we going?" Commander ZYXLOR demanded as they descended a hidden stairwell. "To our best chance of escape," Dr. Ven replied, her patterns flickering with dedication. "We have a secret hangar housing experimental Krenim shuttles designed for stealth operations. If we can reach them, we might be able to slip past the defense fleet." As they emerged into a vast underground chamber, the team gasped in awe. A dozen sleek, organic-looking shuttles stood ready, their surfaces rippling with bioluminescent patterns that seemed to bend light around them. "Incredible," Lyra Tate breathed, her scientific curiosity momentarily overriding the urgency of their situation. Dr. Ven and her colleagues rushed to the nearest consoles, initiating launch sequences and transferring their invaluable research data onto the shuttle systems. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocked the hangar. Dr. Vore and a group of his most loyal followers burst through a side entrance, weapons blazing. "You will not leave this planet with our most advanced technology." Vore roared, his face contorted with rage. Chaos erupted as both sides exchanged fire. Raymond and Uma instinctively reached out with their abilities, creating a shimmering bioluminescent barrier to protect their allies. In the midst of the firefight, a stray energy blast struck a nearby power conduit. The resulting explosion sent shockwaves through the hangar, causing massive chunks of the ceiling to collapse. Raymond, Uma cried out as they were separated by a wall of falling debris. Cut off from the rest of the group, Raymond and Uma found themselves trapped in a maze of collapsing tunnels. Their enhanced abilities kicked into overdrive as they navigated the treacherous path, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing in unison to light the way. As they dodged falling rocks and leapt over widening chasms, their connection intensified. Raymond could feel Uma's fear, her commitment, and something deeper, an overwhelming sense of trust and affection. "We're going to make it," he assured her, grasping her hand tightly as they sprinted through the crumbling passageways. Meanwhile, in the main hangar, Commander Zwyxlor and Captain Hawkins worked frantically to prepare the experimental shuttles for launch. Dr. Venn and her team loaded the last of their equipment, their faces etched with a mix of excitement and fear. "We can't leave without Raymond and Uma," Lyra Tate insisted, her eyes scanning the rubble-strewn hangar entrance. As if on cue, Raymond and Uma burst through a collapsing wall, their bodies covered in dust, but their eyes shining with triumph. "Let's get out of here," Raymond shouted as they sprinted towards the waiting shuttles. With seconds to spare, the team boarded the sleek Krenim vessels. Captain Hawkins took control of the lead shuttle, his years of piloting experience evident as he deftly maneuvered the unfamiliar craft. The hangar doors slid open, revealing a sky filled with energy blasts and explosions as the Krenim defense fleet engaged the outposts' remaining automated defenses. "Engaging stealth systems," Dr. Venn announced, her fingers dancing across the shuttle's control panel. The fleet of experimental shuttles shimmered and seemed to fade from view as they accelerated towards the upper atmosphere. As they broke free from Eridani Ivy's gravity well, a transmission crackled through the comm system. "This is Dr. Elena Rossi," a familiar voice announced. "We're receiving your signal. The situation on Earth has escalated. Victor Crane's condition is critical, and his followers are becoming increasingly aggressive. We need you back here as soon as possible." Captain Hawkins' fist tight as he input the coordinates for Earth. "Hang on, everyone. This might get bumpy." As the shuttles prepared to enter warp speed, Raymond and Uma found themselves alone in a small compartment, their bodies still thrumming with the intense energy of their escape. Their eyes met, and without a word, their bioluminescent patterns began to synchronize. In that moment, as the stars outside blurred into streaks of light, Raymond and Uma's connection transcended the physical. Their patterns merged, creating a dazzling display of light and color that seemed to exist beyond the confines of their bodies. As the experimental Krenim shuttle streaked across space towards Earth, carrying with them the key to resolving the hybridization crisis and the potential for a new era of human-alien relations, Raymond and Uma's intimate encounter hinted at possibilities that neither species had ever imagined. The journey back to Earth would be swift, but the challenges that awaited them there, Victor Crane, the spreading hybridization, and the global political fallout, ensured that their mission was not nearly finished. As the shuttles hurtled through the void, the fate of two worlds hung in the balance, with only this unlikely team standing between order and chaos. Chaos and destruction. As the experimental Krenim shuttles hurtled through space towards Earth, Raymond and Uma remained locked in their intimate connection. Their merged bioluminescent patterns pulsed with an intensity that seemed to transcend the physical realm. However, as they approached their destination, something unexpected began to occur. Uma gasped, her eyes widening in shock. "Raymond, I can't move away from you." Raymond tried to shift his position, only to find that his skin seemed to be fusing with Uma's wherever they touched. Panic rose in his throat as he realized their bodies were merging at a cellular level. "What's happening to us?" he whispered, his voice trembling. Before Uma could respond, the shuttle lurched as it entered Earth's atmosphere. Captain Hawkins' voice crackled over the intercom. "Brace for turbulence, everyone. We've got company." Through the viewport, Raymond and Uma could see a swarm of heavily armed aircraft surrounding their fleet. As they descended through the cloud cover, a sprawling facility on a remote island came into view. "Welcome to Nexus Prime," Dr. Elena Rossi's voice greeted them as they touched down. "We've been expecting you." The moment the shuttle doors opened, a team of hazmat-suited personnel rushed in. They quickly assessed the situation, their eyes widening behind their protective visors at the sight of Raymond and Uma's partially fused bodies. "Get them to the med bay immediately," Dr. Rossi ordered, her face a mask of concern and fascination. As Raymond and Uma were carefully transported on a specialized gurney, they caught glimpses of the high-security facility. Scientists of various species hurried through sterile corridors, while armed guards stood at attention at every junction. In the med bay, Dr. Rossi wasted no time in examining their condition. "Extraordinary," she muttered, running a handheld scanner over their fused skin. "The bioenergetic reaction has created a cellular bond unlike anything we've ever seen." "Can you separate us?" Uma asked, her voice tight with worry. Dr. Rossi's expression grew serious. "We'll do everything we can, but we need to study this phenomenon carefully. Your condition might hold the key to understanding the hybridization process." As the medical team prepared for a series of tests, Captain Hawkins burst into the room. "Doctor, we've got a situation. Victor Crane's condition has deteriorated rapidly. He's taken control of a major city, and his followers are growing by the hour." Dr. Rossi's face paled. "We need to accelerate our timeline. Get the mineral to the lab immediately. We'll begin integrating it into the suppression agent right away." As the facility erupted into a flurry of activity, Raymond and Uma found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of tests and examinations. Scientists from both human and Krenim backgrounds hovered around them, fascinated by their unique condition. Dr. Lyra Venn, the Krenim scientist who had aided their escape from Eridani IV, approached their bedside. "Your fusion has given us unprecedented access to the intricacies of human Krenim hybridization," she explained, her bioluminescent patterns flickering with excitement. "We're adapting our neural interface technology to potentially regulate the expression of Krenim traits in human physiology." Hours blended into days as the team at Nexus Prime worked tirelessly to develop a solution to the spreading crisis. Reports flooded in from around the globe of spontaneous hybridization outbreaks. Governments struggled to contain the panic as entire cities were placed under quarantine. Commander ZYXLOR, his face grim, entered the medical bay. "I've contacted the Galactic Council. They're sending reinforcements, but they're also considering more. Drastic measures if we can't contain this soon." Raymond and Uma exchanged worried glances, their partially fused hands intertwining. The weight of their responsibility pressed down on them, even as their own condition remained uncertain. In a nearby lab, Captain Hawkins and a select team underwent intensive training, preparing for a dangerous mission to infiltrate Victor Crane's stronghold. New weapons and tactics were developed, designed specifically to counter the enhanced abilities of hybridized individuals. As the days wore on, Raymond and Uma's fusion began to take its toll. Fatigue set in and their vital signs showed signs of stress. Dr. Rossi redoubled her efforts to find a way to separate them safely. "We're close to a breakthrough," she assured them, though the worry lines on her forehead betrayed her concern. "Just hang in there a little longer." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. Dr. Xander Voss, a name whispered in scientific circles with equal parts awe and disdain, had arrived at Nexus Prime. With him was Arya, a young woman whose very existence challenged everything they thought they knew about human Krenim hybridization. As Arya was led past the medical bay, Raymond and Uma caught a glimpse of her. She moved with an otherworldly grace, her skin shimmering with subtle bioluminescent patterns. Her eyes, a swirling mix of human and Krenim features, met theirs for a brief moment. In that instant, Raymond and Uma felt a surge of energy course through their fused bodies. Their own bioluminescent patterns flared to life, resonating with areas in a display of light and color that left the observing scientists stunned. As the connection faded, Raymond turned to Uma, his eyes wide with realization. "Did you feel that? I think we might have found the key to controlling the hybridization process." Uma nodded, her expression a mix of hope and tenacity. "We need to talk to Dr. Rossi and Dr. Venn immediately. This could change everything." As they called for the scientists, the fate of humanity hung in the balance. The race against time to prevent global hybridization had entered a new phase, with Raymond and Uma's unique condition potentially holding the solution they so desperately needed. Sought. The realization sent a surge of hope through Raymond and Uma, energizing them despite their precarious condition. Dr. Rossi and Dr. Venn rushed to their side, eyes wide with anticipation. "What happened?" Dr. Rossi asked, her voice tinged with urgency. Raymond explained their encounter with Arya and the sudden resonance they experienced. Dr. Venn's bioluminescent patterns flickered with excitement as she processed the information. "This could be the breakthrough we've been waiting for," she said, her fingers flying over a nearby console. "We need to analyze the energy patterns immediately." As the scientists worked feverishly to understand the implications of this new development, alarms blared throughout the facility once again. This time, it was Commander Zyxlor who burst into the medical bay, his face grave. "We have a problem," he announced. "The hybridization crisis has reached critical levels. Major cities around the globe are reporting mass outbreaks. Governments are struggling to maintain order." Dr. Rossi's face paled. "We're running out of time. We need to separate Raymond and Uma now if we're going to have any chance of developing a solution." The medical team sprang into action, preparing for the risky separation procedure. As Raymond and Uma were wheeled into a specialized chamber, they exchanged a look of purpose and fear. "Whatever happens," Uma whispered, "we're in this together." Raymond nodded, squeezing her hand as the chamber door sealed shut. Dr. Rossi's voice came through the intercom. "We're going to generate an energy field to disentangle your cellular structures. It might be uncomfortable, but try to remain as still as possible." As the procedure began, Raymond and Uma felt a tingling sensation spreading through their fused bodies. The air around them crackled with energy, and their bioluminescent patterns pulsed erratically. Suddenly, a power surge rocked the facility. The energy field intensified, causing Raymond and Uma to cry out in pain. Their patterns flared brilliantly, filling the chamber with dazzling light. "Stabilize the field," Dr. Rossi shouted, her fingers dancing across the control panel. For a moment, it seemed as if the procedure might fail catastrophically. Then, with a final surge of energy, Raymond and Uma's bodies separated. They collapsed onto the chamber floor, gasping for breath. As the medical team rushed in to assess their condition, it became clear that something had changed. Raymond's skin now bore faint, pulsing patterns reminiscent of Krenim bioluminescence. Uma, on the other hand, felt a strange new resonance with her human surroundings. "Incredible," Dr. Venn murmured as she examined them. "The energy surge seems to have caused permanent alterations in their physiology. Raymond has gained limited bioluminescent capabilities, while Uma's biology has become more compatible with human systems." As Raymond and Uma recovered from the separation procedure, activity in Nexus Prime reached a fever pitch. Captain Hawkins and his team prepared for their mission to infiltrate Victor Crane's stronghold, while Dr. Rossi and her colleagues worked tirelessly to refine the suppression agent. Days later, Raymond and Uma found themselves in a high-security briefing room, surrounded by world leaders and scientific experts. The gravity of the situation burdened immensely on everyone present. The hybridization crisis has reached pandemic proportions, a stern-faced official announced. We need to act now if we're going to save humanity. As discussions rage about the best course of action, news arrived from Captain Hawkins' team. They had successfully infiltrated the hybridized city, but the situation was worse than they had imagined. The city is in chaos, Hawkins reported via a secure channel. Citizens are displaying a wide range of mutations and abilities. We're encountering heavy resistance as we approach Crane's Central Command. The room erupted into frantic debate. Some argued for immediate military intervention, while others pushed for a more measured approach. In the midst of the chaos, Raymond and Uma exchanged a look of understanding. "We need to go there," Raymond said, his newly acquired bioluminescent patterns pulsing with tenacity. "Our unique experiences could be crucial in stabilizing the situation." Uma nodded in agreement. "We've come too far to back down now." Dr. Rossi, overhearing their conversation, stepped forward. "I'll lead a team to the hybridized city. We'll administer the latest version of the suppression agent directly to Crane and study its effects in real time." As preparations for the mission got underway, a new complication arose. Commander Zyxlor received a transmission from the Krenim High Council, their faces etched with concern. "The spread of our biological technology on Earth has become too dangerous," the Krenim leader declared. "We demand an immediate cessation of all hybridization research, or we will be forced to quarantine the entire Sol system." This ultimatum sent shockwaves through Nexus Prime. The coalition of world leaders fractured, with some arguing for compliance to avoid galactic isolation, while others insisted on continuing their work. As the debate raged on, Raymond, Uma, and Dr. Rossi's team prepared for their departure. They boarded a specially modified shuttle, its hold filled with equipment and supplies for their dangerous mission. As the shuttle's engines roared to life, Raymond turned to Uma, his faint bioluminescent patterns pulsing in sync with her own. "Ready for another adventure?" he asked, a hint of a smile on his face despite the gravity of their situation. Uma nodded, her eyes reflecting a mix of commitment and apprehension. "Let's go save the world. Again." The shuttle lifted off, carrying them towards the heart of the crisis. As they soared over the landscape, the true scale of the hybridization pandemic became apparent. Entire cities glowed with unnatural light, while others lay in darkness, quarantined and cut off from the outside world. As they approached the airspace of Victor Crane's stronghold, the shuttle's advanced stealth systems engaged, rendering them nearly invisible to conventional detection methods. Through the viewport, they could see the chaos unfolding in the streets below, citizens with a bewildering array of hybrid features clashing with overwhelmed security forces. Dr. Rossi's voice cut through the tense silence in the shuttle. "Remember, our primary objective is to stabilize Crane and administer the suppression agent. If we can understand how his hybridization process differs from the others, we might find the key to stopping this pandemic." As the shuttle descended towards a makeshift landing zone, Raymond and Uma braced themselves for what lay ahead. Their unique abilities and experiences had brought them to this moment, and the fate of two species now rested in their hands. The shuttle touched down with a soft thud, and the team quickly disembarked. As they stepped into the chaotic streets of the hybridized city, Raymond's bioluminescent patterns flared instinctively, responding to the charged atmosphere around them. Uma placed a hand on his arm, her enhanced senses picking up on the swirling energies that permeated the air. "We need to move quickly," she said, her voice barely audible above the distant sounds of conflict. "I can feel the instability growing by the minute." With Dr. Rossi leading the way, the team navigated through the transformed cityscape, their goal clear, but the path fraught with danger. As they pressed on towards Victor Crane's Central Command, the true challenge of their mission began to unfold. Before them, the team moved cautiously through the streets, their senses on high alert. Suddenly, Raymond's communicator crackled to life. Captain Hawkins' voice came through, strained and urgent. "Dr. Rossi, we have a critical situation. Crane's condition is deteriorating rapidly. The hybrids are panicking. We need that suppression agent now." Dr. Rossi's face tightened with concern. "Understood, Captain. We're on our way." The team quickened their pace, navigating through the chaos of the transformed city. Buildings pulsed with strange energies, and the air itself seemed charged with an otherworldly current. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with a group of hybrids, their bodies contorted into bizarre shapes, eyes wide with fear and confusion. Uma stepped forward, her enhanced senses picking up on the swirling energies emanating from the group. She raised her hands in a calming gesture. "We're here to help," she said softly, her voice carrying a strange resonance that seemed to soothe the agitated hybrids. As the group parted to let them pass, Raymond felt a sudden surge of energy course through his body. His bioluminescent patterns flared brightly, synchronizing with Uma's in a dazzling display. To his surprise, he found he could sense Uma's thoughts and emotions with startling clarity. "Uma, are you feeling this?" he asked telepathically, his eyes wide with amazement. Uma nodded, her expression mirroring his own. "Our connection. It's intensified. We can use this, Raymond. It could be crucial for the mission." As they approached the research outpost, the scale of the crisis became apparent. Hybrid citizens with an array of mutations surged through the streets, their unstable conditions causing erratic bursts of energy that shattered windows and overloaded electrical systems. Captain Hawkins and his remaining squad members fought to maintain a perimeter around the facility, their specialized weapons barely keeping the chaos at bay. Dr. Rossi wasted no time. She barked orders to her team as they set up their equipment with practiced efficiency. "We need to stabilize Crane immediately. His condition is the key to all of this." Raymond and Uma, guided by their newfound connection, moved through the throng of hybrids with uncanny grace. They approached a reinforced chamber where Victor Crane was contained. Through the observation window, they could see Crane's body shifting and contorting, cycling through various hybrid states at an alarming rate. Dr. Rossi approached the chamber, her face set with determination as she prepared the suppression agent. "We'll administer the agent in controlled doses," she explained. "Monitor his vital signs closely. Any adverse reaction could be catastrophic." As the first dose of the suppression agent entered Crane's system, Raymond and Uma felt a ripple of energy pulse through the air. Their bioluminescent patterns flickered in response, and they instinctively reached out with their enhanced senses to monitor the changes in Crane's bioenergy. "His patterns are stabilizing," Uma reported, her eyes closed in concentration. "But there's something else. A residual energy signature." Raymond nodded in agreement. It's like his body is finding a balance between human and hybrid states. Dr. Rossi's eyes widened at this information. "This could be the breakthrough we've been looking for. If we can achieve a controlled hybridization." Her words were cut short as a violent tremor shook the building. Outside, the situation was escalating. A group of hybrids, their bodies pulsing with unstable energy, had broken through the perimeter. Captain Hawkins' voice crackled over the comm system. "Dr. Rossi, we can't hold them back much longer. Whatever you're doing in there, do it fast." Raymond and Uma exchanged a look of understanding. Without a word, they moved in unison towards the exit. "Where are you going?" Dr. Rossi called after them. "To buy you some time," Raymond replied, his bioluminescent patterns pulsing with willpower. As they stepped outside, the full chaos of the hybridized city assaulted their senses. The air crackled with bioelectric energy, and the very ground seemed to shift beneath their feet. Hybrids in various stages of mutation surged towards the research outpost, their faces contorted with fear and confusion. Raymond and Uma stood their ground, their enhanced connection allowing them to move and think as one. They reached out with their minds, projecting a sense of calm and purpose towards the approaching hybrids. To their amazement, some of the hybrids began to respond. Their erratic movements slowed, and their wild eyes focused on Raymond and Uma with a glimmer of recognition. "We can reach them," Uma realized, her voice filled with awe. "We're a bridge between human and hybrid minds." Raymond nodded, concentrating on strengthening the connection. "We need to guide them, show them how to control their new abilities." As they worked to calm the crowd, they noticed a small group of hybrids who seemed different from the others. These individuals moved with purpose and control, their mutations stable and their minds clear. One of them, a woman with iridescent skin and eyes that glowed with an inner light, approached Raymond and Uma. "You're like us," she said, her voice carrying a harmonious resonance. "You understand the balance." Raymond and Uma exchanged a surprised glance. This group of stable hybrids could be the key to understanding how to manage the crisis on a larger scale. Meanwhile, inside the research outpost, Dr. Rossi and her team worked feverishly to stabilize Victor Crane's condition. The suppression agent was having an effect, but not in the way they had anticipated. Instead of reverting to a fully human state, Crane's body was settling into a controlled hybrid form. As Dr. Rossi studied the readings, her mind raced with the implications. "This isn't just a cure," she murmured to herself. "It's an evolution." Outside, Raymond and Uma continued their efforts to calm the hybrid population, aided by the group of stable hybrids. Their combined abilities created a ripple effect, spreading understanding and control throughout the chaotic crowd. As the situation in the city began to stabilize, Raymond's communicator chirped with an incoming transmission. It was a message from Nexus Prime, Martha's Urgent. As he listened to the contents, his eyes widened with shock. "Uma," he called out, his voice tight with tension. "We have a new problem. A massive fleet of unknown alien ships has just entered the solar system." Uma's face paled at the news. They had barely begun to address the hybridization crisis, and now they faced the possibility of first contact with a new alien species, or worse, an interstellar conflict. As they stood there, the stabilized city around them, Raymond and Uma knew that their greatest challenge was yet to come. The fate of humanity and perhaps the entire solar system now hung in the balance. Balance. The fate of humanity and perhaps the entire solar system now hung in the balance. As if on cue, sirens blared across the city, their urgent wails cutting through the relative calm they had just established. Raymond's communicator lit up again, this time with a priority message from Nexus Prime. "All personnel, report to command immediately," the message read. "First contact protocols initiated." Raymond and Uma exchanged a look of understanding. The hybridization crisis had just become a footnote in what could be the most significant event in human history. "We need to get back to Dr. Rossi," Uma said, her voice tight with urgency. They made their way through the now docile crowd of hybrids, their enhanced abilities allowing them to move with preternatural speed and grace. As they approached the research outpost, they saw Dr. Rossi emerging, her face a mix of excitement and concern. "You've heard?" she asked as they drew near. Raymond nodded. "An alien fleet just entered the solar system." "It's not just that," Dr. Rossi replied, her voice low. "Look at this." She held up a tablet displaying Victor Crane's latest test results. The data scrolled by, a complex array of figures and charts that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly rhythm. Uma's eyes widened as she processed the information. His hybrid state. It stabilized? Dr. Rossi nodded. Not only stabilized, but enhanced. Increased physical capabilities, cognitive function off the charts. If we can replicate this. Her words were cut short as a military transport touched down nearby, its engines whining as they powered down. Captain Hawkins emerged, his face grim. "Dr. Rossi, Raymond, Uma, you're needed at Nexus Prime immediately. We're assembling a first contact team, and you've been selected as key members." As they boarded the transport, Raymond felt a surge of bioenergy pulse through his body. He turned to Uma, seeing his own amazement reflected in her eyes. "Did you feel that?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Uma nodded. "Our connection. It's growing stronger." As the transport lifted off, carrying them towards Nexus Prime and the greatest challenge humanity had ever faced, Raymond and Uma found themselves at the center of a storm of emotions and energy. They could sense the fear and excitement radiating from the other passengers, could almost taste the tension in the air. The journey to Nexus Prime was a blur of activity. As soon as they landed, they were whisked into a high-security briefing room. The coalition of world leaders was already assembled, their faces etched with lines of worry and lack of sleep. A holographic display dominated the center of the room, showing the solar system and the positions of the unknown alien fleet. The vessels hung in space just beyond Mars' orbit, their designs unlike anything Raymond had ever seen. The aliens have been transmitting a complex series of signals, a signal analyst reported, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "We've made some progress in decoding them, but—" She trailed off, looking uncertainly at Raymond and Uma. Uma stepped forward, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing gently. "There's more to it, isn't there?" The analyst nodded. "The signals. They bear a striking resemblance to the bioenergetic patterns produced by hybrid physiologies. Specifically, yours." A murmur ran through the room. Raymond felt a chill run down his spine. The implications were staggering. Before anyone could fully process this information, another alert sounded. A junior officer burst into the room, his face pale. "Sir, we're receiving reports of coordinated attacks on major cities. Anti-hybrid extremist groups are targeting hybrid communities and research facilities." The room erupted into chaos. World leaders argued over how to respond, their voices rising in a cacophony of fear and anger. Amidst the turmoil, Raymond felt a gentle touch on his arm. He turned to see Uma, her eyes filled with a calm dedication. "We need to go out there," she said softly. "Our abilities. We might be the key to communicating with the aliens." Raymond nodded, feeling the truth of her words resonate through their shared connection. As if on cue, Dr. Xander Voss pushed his way through the crowd, Arya following close behind. "I volunteer Arya for the first contact team," he announced. "Her stable hybrid physiology makes her an ideal candidate." Raymond opened his mouth to object, but Uma squeezed his arm, sending a wave of reassurance through their bond. He understood her unspoken message. They needed all the help they could get. Within hours, a specially modified shuttle was prepared. Raymond, Uma, and Arya boarded along with a select group of human and Krenim scientists and diplomats. As the shuttle's engines roared to life, Raymond felt a mix of fear and exhilaration coursing through him. They launched from Nexus Prime, leaving behind a world teetering on the brink of chaos. As they approached the alien fleet, Raymond's bioluminescent patterns began to pulsate more intensely. He could feel Uma and Arya experiencing the same phenomenon. Suddenly, the alien flagship emitted a powerful energy beam. Instead of the destruction they feared, the beam created a sort of energy corridor, seeming to invite them to dock. "What do we do?" the shuttle pilot asked, his voice tight with tension. Raymond and Uma exchanged a look, their enhanced connection allowing them to communicate without words. They both knew the risks, but also understood the potential consequences of retreating. "Take us in," Raymond said, his voice steady despite the fear churning in his gut. "It's time to make first contact." As the shuttle glided into the energy corridor, Raymond felt a surge of bioenergy unlike anything he had experienced before. The alien signals resonated with his hybrid physiology, creating a symphony of light and energy that danced across his skin. They were about to face their greatest challenge yet, but as Raymond looked at Uma and Arya, he knew they weren't facing it alone. Whatever lay ahead, they would confront it together, as representatives of a humanity that was rapidly evolving into something new and extraordinary. The shuttle approached the alien vessel, its massive hull looming before them. As they drew closer, intricate patterns on the ship's surface began to glow, pulsating in rhythm with their own bioenergetic fields. The invitation was clear, but the consequences of accepting it remained unknown. With hearts racing and senses heightened, the first contact team prepared to step into the unknown, carrying with them the hopes and fears of an entire planet. Species. With hearts racing and senses heightened, the first contact team prepared to step into the unknown, carrying with them the hopes and fears of an entire planet. As their shuttle drew closer to the colossal alien flagship, Raymond and Uma's bioluminescent patterns intensified, pulsing in perfect synchronization with the energy beam enveloping their craft. Captain Hawkins, his face etched with commitment, made the pivotal decision. "Take us in," he ordered, his voice steady despite the tension palpable in the air. The shuttle glided smoothly into the alien vessel's docking bay, revealing an interior that defied their expectations. The architecture was a seamless blend of advanced technology and organic forms, with walls that seemed to breathe and floors that rippled with life. As the team disembarked, Raymond and Uma instinctively took the lead, their hybrid physiology acting as a living conduit between humanity and the unknown. The moment their feet touched the deck, the surface beneath them came alive, illuminating with intricate patterns that mirrored their own bioluminescence. Suddenly, a shimmering portal materialized before them, and from it emerged a group of tall, ethereal beings. These creatures, composed of swirling light and energy, moved with a grace that seemed almost liquid. The leader of these beings, a figure of mesmerizing beauty, approached the team. When it spoke, no sound emerged, yet Raymond, Uma, and Arya found their minds filled with a symphony of thoughts and emotions. "We are the Luminari," the being communicated. "I am Zaravex. We welcome you, children of Earth." Captain Hawkins stepped forward, but it was clear he couldn't comprehend the aliens' method of communication. Raymond took the lead, his voice translating for the benefit of the human members of the team. "They call themselves the Luminari," he explained. "They're an ancient race responsible for seeding bioluminescent life throughout the galaxy." Uma's eyes widened as she processed the information flowing into her mind. "They say the hybridization crisis on Earth. It's reactivated dormant genetic markers in human DNA. Markers left by the Luminari eons ago." Before the implications of this revelation could fully sink in, alarms blared throughout the vessel, their urgent wails cutting through the air. Zaravex's form flickered with concern. "A great danger threatens your world," the alien conveyed. "One of your own, a hybrid of immense power, leads an attack on your cities." Captain Hawkins' communicator chirped, confirming the Luminari's warning. Reports flooded in of coordinated attacks on major cities worldwide, led by a charismatic and terrifyingly powerful hybrid. "It's Caden Voss," Dr. Xander Voss whispered, his face pale with shock. "My son." The Luminari leader's form pulsed with urgency. "We offer our aid in stabilizing your hybrid population and countering this threat. But know that our help comes with a condition. Earth must join our galactic federation of hybrid species, with the Luminari as overseers of your evolution." Captain Hawkins hesitated, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. With a heavy sigh, he nodded. "On behalf of Earth, I accept your offer." As the alien flagship began to move towards Earth, accompanied by the Luminari fleet, they encountered immediate resistance. Human military vessels and ships from the Galactic Council moved to intercept them, viewing the sudden appearance of the alien armada as a potential invasion. Raymond and Uma, drawing on their deepening connection and enhanced abilities, worked feverishly to establish communication between the Luminari, Earth's leaders, and the Galactic Council. Their efforts prevented an all-out war, but tensions remained high as the fleet entered Earth's atmosphere. As the alien ships descended through the clouds, the team received urgent news from Nexus Prime. Caden Voss and his hybrid army had launched a massive assault on the facility, seeking to seize control of its advanced research. "We need to get down there," Raymond urged, his bioluminescent patterns flaring with intensity. The Luminari provided them with a swift transport, its organic design allowing it to slice through the atmosphere at incredible speeds. As they approached Nexus Prime, the scale of the battle became apparent. Hybrid forces clashed with military units and stabilized hybrids from the contained city. The sky was alight with bioelectric discharges and energy weapons. At the center of the chaos stood Caden Voss, his form twisted and enhanced by uncontrolled hybridization, wielding power that seemed to warp reality itself. Raymond and Uma leaped into action, their synchronized abilities proving crucial in countering Caden's devastating attacks. They moved as one, their bioluminescent patterns creating a dazzling light show as they deflected energy blasts and protected civilians. Amidst the chaos, Dr. Xander Voss pushed through the battle lines, his eyes fixed on his son. "Caden," he called out, his voice breaking with emotion. "Please stop this. It's not too late." For a moment, Caden hesitated, his eyes flickering with recognition. It was the opening Raymond and Uma needed. They surged forward, a vial of the new Luminari-enhanced suppression agent clutched in Raymond's hand. As they closed in, Caden's power erupted in a final, desperate attack. Raymond and Uma threw themselves forward, their bodies intertwining as they absorbed the brunt of the energy blast. The vial shattered against Caden's skin, its contents seeping into his flesh. A blinding flash engulfed them all as Caden's powers began to stabilize, releasing a massive burst of energy. Raymond and Uma, their minds and bodies pushed to the limit, drew on their deepest connection yet. Together, they contained and redirected the energy burst, saving countless lives but putting immense strain on their own hybrid physiologies. As the light faded, Caden collapsed to the ground, his powers finally under control. Raymond and Uma, their bodies trembling from exertion, fell into each other's arms. Their bioluminescent patterns flickered weakly as medical teams rushed to their aid. The immediate threat had been neutralized, but the world would never be the same. As the dust settled on the battlefield, the looming forms of the Luminari ships served as a stark reminder of humanity's new place in the cosmos. The era of isolation was over, and the age of controlled evolution had begun. Raymond's vision blurred as he clung to Uma, their weakened bioenergy fields pulsing in unison. As consciousness slipped away, he caught a glimpse of Dr. Elena Rossi running towards them, a look of both triumph and concern on her face. The world faded to black, leaving the fate of human-alien relations hanging in the balance, with the promise of unprecedented opportunities and unforeseen challenges looming on the horizon. As Raymond's consciousness faded. He awoke to a sensation of warmth and gentle pulsation surrounding his body. Opening his eyes, Raymond found himself suspended in a luminescent fluid within a pod-like chamber. The walls seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting in a soothing rhythm. Beside him, Uma floated in a similar pod, her bioluminescent patterns flickering weakly but steadily growing stronger. A soft voice resonated in his mind. "Rest, Raymond. Your body is healing." He recognized the ethereal presence of Zervex, the Luminari leader. As his senses sharpened, Raymond became aware of the intricate network of bioenergy flowing through the ship's organic architecture, responding to his hybrid physiology. Over the next few days, Raymond and Uma drifted in and out of consciousness. Their shared dreams were vivid and intense, filled with fragments of each other's memories. Raymond experienced Uma's childhood in the contained city, feeling her isolation and longing for connection. Uma, in turn, lived through Raymond's early days as a hybrid, sensing his fear and confusion as his body changed. As their strength returned, the healing pods opened, allowing them to explore the advanced medical bay. The floor rippled beneath their feet, adjusting to provide optimal support for their recovering bodies. Holographic displays materialized, showing their rapidly stabilizing biosignatures. Dr. Elena Rossi entered the medical bay, her face a mix of excitement and exhaustion. "You two gave us quite a scare," she said, embracing them both. "But your actions saved countless lives." She updated them on the situation outside. "We're working around the clock to produce the new suppression agent. The Luminari technology is incredible, but adapting it to our manufacturing processes is challenging." Captain Hawkins joined them, his uniform creased from long hours of work. "The world's in chaos, but we're making progress. Joint Human Luminari teams are deploying to major cities, helping to stabilize the hybrid population." As Raymond and Uma absorbed this information, they noticed Dr. Xander Voss in a nearby lab, hunched over a workstation. His eyes were red-rimmed, his movements frantic as he manipulated holographic models of hybrid DNA. "He hasn't left that lab since." Captain Hawkins trailed off, his expression grim. Before they could inquire further, Zaravex materialized before them, her form shimmering with ethereal light. "Raymond, Uma." Her thoughts resonated in their minds. "Your unique bond has opened new possibilities. We offer you a chance to unlock even greater potential." The Luminari leader explained the experimental procedure, outlining both its promise and its risks. Raymond and Uma listened intently, their hands instinctively intertwining as they considered the implications. After a long discussion with Dr. Rossi and Captain Hawkins, weighing the potential benefits against the dangers, they made their decision. "We'll do it," Raymond said, his voice steady. Uma nodded, her grip on his hand tightening. They were led to a chamber deep within the Luminari flagship. The room pulsed with bioenergy, its walls lined with intricate, glowing patterns. In the center stood 2 pods filled with a shimmering opalescent fluid. As Raymond and Uma prepared to enter the pods, Dr. Rossi approached them. "Whatever happens in there," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "remember who you are. Your humanity is your strength." They stepped into the pods, the luminescent fluid enveloping them. As the procedure began, Raymond felt Uma's presence in his mind grow stronger. Their individual consciousness began to blur, merging into something greater. Suddenly, their perception expanded exponentially. They could sense the bioenergetic signals of every living thing on the ship, on Earth, and beyond. The complex web of life stretched out before them, each connection a thread in a vast, cosmic tapestry. Visions flashed through their shared mind. Ancient Luminari ships seeding primordial worlds with bioluminescent life, the slow evolution of species across the galaxy, the Krenim's first experiments with hybridization. They saw the true scope of the Luminari's plans for humanity's evolution, a future both thrilling and terrifying in its possibilities. As their awareness continued to grow, Raymond and Uma caught glimpses of a heated debate in a grand, alien chamber. The Galactic Council was in session, arguing fiercely about Earth's fate. Some members called for quarantine, while others saw opportunity in humanity's rapid evolution. Back on Earth, they sensed the emergence of the first wave of stabilized hybrids. Individuals with extraordinary abilities were already making breakthroughs in science, medicine, and technology. But with these advancements came fear and uncertainty, as society grappled with the implications of a changed humanity. Their expanded consciousness touched on Caden Voss, contained but still volatile. They felt the turmoil in his mind, the struggle between his human identity and his extreme hybrid nature. As the procedure neared its completion, Raymond and Uma's shared consciousness began to coalesce. Their bodies pulsed with newfound energy, their bioluminescent patterns shining with unprecedented brilliance. The fluid drained from their pods, and they opened their eyes to find an assembled group waiting for them. Human leaders stood alongside Luminari representatives and members of the Galactic Council, all watching with a mix of hope and apprehension. Raymond and Uma stepped forward, their bodies moving in perfect synchronization. As they prepared to address the gathered officials, they could feel the weight of humanity's future resting on their shoulders. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges both known and unimaginable, but they were ready to face them together. Raymond and Uma stepped forward, their bodies moving in perfect synchronization. As they prepared to address the gathered officials, a sudden wave of sensory input overwhelmed them. The bioenergetic signals from every living being in the room flooded their newly expanded consciousness, creating a cacophony of information that threatened to drown out their own thoughts. Uma stumbled, her hand gripping Raymond's arm for support. Raymond's bioluminescent patterns flared erratically, reflecting his inner turmoil. The assembled leaders watched with growing concern as the couple struggled to maintain their composure. Dr. Elena Rossi, who had been observing from the sidelines, quickly stepped forward. "They need time," she announced, her voice cutting through the tense silence. "Their minds and bodies are still adjusting to the transformation. We can't expect them to process everything at once." Captain Hawkins nodded in agreement. "Dr. Rossi is right. We should give them space to acclimate." The Luminari representative, Zarvex, tilted her head in a gesture of understanding. "We have prepared specialized quarters for just such a possibility. They will be safe there, able to explore their new abilities without external pressures." As the officials murmured their reluctant assent, Raymond and Uma were gently guided away from the gathering. They moved through the organic corridors of the Luminari flagship, the walls pulsing with a soft, comforting light that seemed to respond to their presence. The door to their new quarters opened with a whisper, revealing a spacious room that blended alien technology with Earth-like comforts. The moment they were alone, Raymond and Uma collapsed onto a large, cushioned surface that molded itself to their bodies. "It's too much," Uma gasped, her eyes wide. "I can feel everything, everyone." Raymond pulled her close, their skin making contact. Instantly, a surge of clarity washed over them both. Their thoughts intertwined, creating a shared mental space where they could process the overwhelming input together. "Focus on us," Raymond said, both aloud and in their shared consciousness. "Just us for now." As they lay there, their bioluminescent patterns began to synchronize. Intricate designs flowed across their skin, creating a mesmerizing display that seemed to hold meaning beyond mere aesthetics. They found that skin-to-skin contact allowed them to share thoughts and emotions with unprecedented clarity, leading to moments of intense intimacy and connection. Days passed as Raymond and Uma explored the depths of their new abilities. They discovered they could extend their bioenergetic field, creating a bubble of enhanced perception around them. Within this field, they could sense the emotions and surface thoughts of others, a skill that would prove invaluable in the challenges to come. Meanwhile, on Earth, the distribution of the Luminari-enhanced suppression agent had begun in earnest. Major cities around the world became centers for controlled hybridization. Volunteers lined up at newly established facilities, eager to undergo carefully monitored transformations. In New York, a young woman named Sophia Chin emerged from a transformation chamber, her skin now adorned with subtle, shifting patterns. Under the watchful eye of Dr. Xander Voss, she demonstrated her new ability to manipulate electrical fields, effortlessly activating and deactivating the advanced equipment around her. "Remarkable," Dr. Voss muttered, furiously taking notes. His eyes gleamed with a mix of scientific curiosity and something darker, more obsessive. In the privacy of his personal lab, he pored over the data from Raymond and Uma's transformation, convinced that their unique bond held the key to unlocking even greater potential. As the first wave of stabilized hybrids began to integrate into society, Captain Hawkins found himself overseeing the establishment of new educational facilities. These integration academies became crucial in maintaining order and preventing incidents of accidental power usage. At one such academy in Chicago, a group of newly transformed hybrids gathered in a large, open space. Their instructor, a veteran hybrid from the previously contained city, demonstrated techniques for controlling their abilities. "Remember," the instructor said, her voice calm but firm, "your power is an extension of yourself. Breathe. Center your thoughts. Let the energy flow naturally." The students practiced, their efforts resulting in a dazzling display of bioluminescence and controlled energy manipulation. However, outside the academy's walls, a group of protesters had gathered, their angry shouts a stark reminder of the tension growing between hybrids and the unaltered human population. Back on the Luminari flagship, Raymond and Uma's period of isolation was coming to an end. As they prepared to face the world again, they sensed a growing unrest emanating from Earth. The fear and resentment towards the rapidly evolving hybrids were building, threatening to spark a global conflict. "We have to do something," Uma said, her hand intertwined with Raymond's. Their shared bioenergetic field pulsed with concern. Before they could discuss further, Zaravex materialized in their quarters. The Luminari leader's form shimmered with ethereal light as she addressed them. "Raymond, Uma." Her thoughts resonated in their minds. "Your unique abilities may be the key to averting a crisis. We offer you a chance to unlock even greater potential." Zaravex explained the experimental procedure, outlining both its promise and its risks. The process could amplify their abilities further, potentially allowing them to project their bioenergetic field on a global scale. This enhanced connection could facilitate understanding and empathy between all of Earth's inhabitants. However, Zaravex cautioned, the procedure comes with significant risks. There is a possibility that you may lose your individual identities in the process. As Raymond and Uma contemplated this momentous decision, an urgent message from Captain Hawkins interrupted their thoughts. The captain's holographic form appeared, his expression grave. "We have a situation," Hawkins reported. "A group of anti-hybrid extremists has seized control of several integration academies. They're holding hybrid students hostage and threatening to expose them to a modified version of the Krenim compound. If they succeed, it could destabilize the hybrid's abilities and trigger a catastrophe." Raymond and Uma exchanged a look, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing in unison. The weight of their decision pressed down upon them. Should they risk their own identities by undergoing the final procedure, potentially gaining the power to unite Earth's fractured population? Or should they intervene directly in the hostage crisis, using their current abilities to prevent an immediate catastrophe? As they stood on the precipice of this crucial choice, Raymond pulled Uma close. Their bodies intertwined, bioluminescent patterns, creating a breathtaking display of light and color. In this moment of intimate connection, they shared not just thoughts and emotions, but the very essence of their beings. The fate of Earth and its place in the galactic community hung in the balance. Raymond and Uma's decision would shape not only their own future, but the course of human evolution itself. With the clock ticking and the stakes higher than ever, they prepared to make their choice, knowing that whatever path they chose, they would face it together. Raymond and Uma exchanged a meaningful glance, their decision crystallizing in their shared consciousness. The urgency of the hostage crisis outweighed the allure of enhanced abilities. They turned to face Zaravex and Captain Hawkins, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing in unison. "We need to help those students," Raymond said, his voice steady and resolute. Uma nodded, adding, "The procedure can wait. Earth needs us now." Captain Hawkins wasted no time, quickly outlining the plan of action. Within minutes, Raymond and Uma found themselves aboard a high-speed shuttle, racing towards the largest seas academy in New Geneva. A team of specially trained hybrid peacekeepers accompanied them, their nervous energy palpable in the confined space. As they approached the sprawling campus, Raymond and Uma linked hands, extending their bioenergetic field around the facility. The complex web of life signs within the building materialized in their shared mind, a tangle of fear, anger, and perseverance. "I count 37 hostages in the main auditorium," Uma reported, her eyes closed in concentration. The extremists are scattered, but most are concentrated near the entry points. Raymond's brow furrowed as he processed the information. They're scared, Uma. The extremists. I can feel their fear beneath the anger. The shuttle touched down a safe distance from the academy. As they disembarked, Raymond and Uma's skin began to glow, their patterns shifting and synchronizing. The assembled team watched in awe as the couple's bioluminescence grew in intensity, casting a soft, pulsating light over the area. Captain Hawkins raised an eyebrow. That's new. We're amplifying our calming effect, Uma explained, her voice taking on an otherworldly quality. It should help disorient the extremists without harming the students. The team moved swiftly towards the main entrance. As they approached, a voice crackled over a loudspeaker, filled with hardly restrained panic. Stay back. We have the modified compound, and we're not afraid to use it. Raymond and Uma stepped forward, their synchronized patterns creating a hypnotic display. The extremists at the entrance faltered, their grip on their weapons loosening as they stared at the mesmerizing light. Captain Hawkins seized the moment, signaling his team to move in. They breached the entrance with practiced efficiency, quickly subduing the disoriented guards. Inside, Raymond and Uma extended their empathic abilities, connecting with the frightened hybrid students. Through their shared consciousness, they projected waves of calm and reassurance. It's okay? Uma's thoughts echoed in the students' minds. Stay calm. Control your breathing. Your powers will remain stable if you stay focused. As they moved deeper into the building, Dr. Elena Rossi's voice crackled through their earpieces. Raymond, Uma, I've analyzed the compound. It's unstable, but I believe we can neutralize it with a specific bioenergetic frequency. Send us the details, Raymond replied, his mind already racing with possibilities. Dr. Rossi transmitted the necessary information, and Raymond and Uma immediately began to adjust their bioenergetic output. Their skin shimmered as they generated the neutralizing frequency, projecting it throughout the building in waves of soft, pulsating light. In the main auditorium, the extremist leader held a vial of the modified compound, his hand shaking as he prepared to release it. Suddenly, the liquid inside the vial turned inert, its threatening glow fading to a dull gray. It's not working, one of the extremists shouted, panic rising in his voice. Captain Hawkins and his team used the confusion to their advantage, moving swiftly to secure the room. Raymond and Uma guided them through their mental link, helping them avoid areas where scared students might accidentally discharge their powers. There are 3 more in the chemistry lab, Uma communicated to Hawkins. They're planning to use the students as shields. Raymond focused his thoughts, projecting a sense of calm towards the cornered extremists. We can help you find a peaceful way out of this, he offered, his mental voice gentle but firm. The standoff in the chemistry lab lasted several tense minutes, but ultimately, the combination of Raymond and Uma's empathic influence and the peacekeepers' strategic positioning led to a peaceful surrender. As the last of the extremists were led away, Raymond and Uma turned their attention to the freed students. The young hybrids gathered around them, their own bioluminescent patterns flickering with a mix of fear and awe. You saved us, a young girl said, her eyes wide. How did you do that? Uma knelt down, placing a comforting hand on the girl's shoulder. We're all connected, she explained, her skin glowing softly. Human, hybrid, it doesn't matter. We're part of something greater. Raymond nodded, addressing the group. What you can do, what we can all do, it's not something to be feared. It's a gift, one that comes with great responsibility. As they spoke with the students, reports came in from around the world. Similar interventions had succeeded at other SEAS academies, thanks to the coordinated response made possible by Raymond and Uma's abilities. The couple's bioluminescent patterns gradually returned to their normal state as the immediate crisis passed. They stood together, watching as medical teams arrived to check on the students and staff. Captain Hawkins approached, a rare smile on his face. "Well done, both of you. I think we've just turned a corner in human-hybrid relations." Raymond and Uma shared a look, their hands finding each other once again. Their journey was just a beginning, but they had taken a crucial step towards a more united future. As they prepared to address the world, they knew that the real work of bringing humans and hybrids together was only just beginning. As they prepared to address the world, they knew that the real work of bringing humans and hybrids together was only just starting. The days following the hostage crisis were a whirlwind of activity. Raymond and Uma found themselves at the center of a media storm, their faces plastered across screens worldwide. News outlets clamored for interviews, while social media buzzed with discussions about their heroic actions. As they stepped onto the stage for a global press conference, Raymond squeezed Uma's hand, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing in sync. Cameras flashed, and a sea of reporters fell silent, waiting for them to speak. "We stand here today not as saviors, but as a bridge," Raymond began, his voice steady. "A bridge between humans and hybrids, between Earth and the stars." Uma continued, "Our abilities are not a threat, but a gift. A gift that, when used responsibly, can bring understanding and unity." As they fielded questions from reporters, Dr. Elena Rossi watched from the wings, her mind racing with possibilities. When the conference concluded, she approached the couple, her eyes bright with excitement. "Raymond, Uma, I have a proposition for you," she said, leading them to a quiet corner. "The Luminari have offered to host a galactic symposium here on Earth. They want to focus on interspecies biology and the potential benefits of controlled hybridization." Raymond raised an eyebrow. "That's quite an undertaking. How do we fit in?" Dr. Rossi smiled. "You two are the perfect candidates to lead a practical demonstration during the symposium. Your unique bond, your abilities, they could be the key to showing the world and the galaxy what's possible." Uma and Raymond exchanged a glance, their bioluminescent patterns shifting in a silent conversation. After a moment, they nodded in agreement. "We'll do it," Uma said. "If it helps bring people together, we're in." The next few weeks were a blur of preparation. The Luminari transformed a massive convention center in New York City into a marvel of galactic architecture. Holographic displays shimmered in the air, while bioadaptive environments hummed with energy, ready to accommodate visitors from across the stars. As the symposium date approached, tension simmered beneath the surface of public excitement. Anti-hybrid groups, though weakened, began organizing protests outside the convention center. Captain Hawkins oversaw security measures, his team a mix of human and hybrid peacekeepers working in tandem. The day of the symposium arrived with a palpable buzz in the air. Delegates from over 50 alien species poured into New York, their diverse forms and colors turning the city into a living rainbow. Zwiaxlor, the Arcturian commander, strode through the convention center doors, his crystalline form catching the light. Even the Krenim, once Earth adversaries, sent representatives, their scaled faces betraying a mix of curiosity and caution. Raymond and Uma stood backstage, preparing for the opening ceremony. Their hands were clasped, bioluminescent patterns dancing across their skin in intricate, synchronized designs. "Ready?" Raymond asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Uma nodded, her eyes gleaming. Together, they stepped onto the stage, and the auditorium fell silent. As they began their demonstration, their bioluminescent patterns intensified, casting a soft, mesmerizing glow over the audience. Alien delegates leaned forward in their seats, captivated by the display. Raymond and Uma moved in perfect harmony, their movements fluid and graceful. They showcased their ability to facilitate communication, allowing delegates to experience fleeting moments of connection with those around them. Suddenly, Their bioenergetic field expanded, enveloping the entire auditorium in a shimmering dome of light. Gasps echoed through the room as delegates found themselves experiencing a shared consciousness, briefly sensing the thoughts and emotions of those around them. The Arcturian delegates' crystalline form vibrated with excitement, while the Krenim representatives chittered among themselves, their scaled skin flushing with a mix of awe and apprehension. Human audience members sat wide-eyed, some reaching out to touch the shimmering field. As the initial shock subsided, Dr. Xander Voss seized the moment. He strode onto the stage, his eyes gleaming with the fever of scientific breakthrough. "Ladies, gentlemen, and esteemed delegates of all species," he began, his voice ringing out across the auditorium. "What we've just witnessed is more than a demonstration. It's a glimpse into the future of galactic relations." Voss outlined his latest research, explaining how he believed Raymond and Uma's connection could be replicated in other human-alien pairs. He proposed a series of experiments involving willing volunteers, his words painting a vision of a future where interspecies communication and understanding reached unprecedented levels. The Luminari representatives, their ethereal forms shimmering with interest, stepped forward to offer their support. They promised advanced biotechnology to aid in Voss's research, their announcement sending a ripple of excitement through the crowd. However, not all reactions were positive. Some members of the Galactic Council shifted uneasily in their seats, their expressions guarded. The implications of such rapid advancement in hybridization technology clearly unsettled them. As debates erupted among the delegates, Raymond and Uma retreated from the stage, overwhelmed by the intensity of their shared experience. They found themselves in a private room, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing erratically. "That was intense," Raymond said, his breath coming in short gasps. Uma nodded, her eyes wide. "I've never felt our connection so strongly before." Their gazes locked, and in that moment, the world around them seemed to fade away. Their bioluminescent patterns intertwined in new, complex ways, creating a dazzling light show that filled the room. As their lips met, their shared consciousness expanded, enveloping them in a cocoon of sensation and emotion. Meanwhile, in a secure wing of the convention center, Caden Voss jolted awake from a fevered sleep. His eyes were wide, unfocused, as visions flooded his mind. He saw flashes of a future where Earth stood at the center of a galactic hybridization program, but also glimpsed shadows of conflict and challenge. Dr. Lyra Venn, who had been monitoring him, rushed to his side. "Caden, what is it? What do you see?" As Caden began to describe his visions, Dr. Venn frantically took notes, her mind racing with the potential implications of his prophecies. Outside the convention center, the mood on the streets was shifting. News of Raymond and Uma's demonstration spread like wildfire, capturing the public's imagination. Social media exploded with discussions about the potential of hybrid abilities, and educational institutions worldwide began expressing interest in establishing programs to explore these new frontiers. As the sun set over New York City, casting a golden glow over the convention center, Raymond and Uma emerged from their private moment. Their bond felt stronger than ever, their bioluminescent patterns now moving in perfect synchronization. They paused at the door leading back to the main auditorium, the sounds of ongoing debates filtering through. Raymond turned to Uma, his expression a mix of dedication and wonder. "Whatever happens next," he said, "we face it together." Uma nodded, her hand finding his. "Together," she echoed. With a shared breath, they pushed open the door, ready to step back into the spotlight and face the challenges that lay ahead. The fate of human hybrid relations, Earth's place in the galactic community, and the future of their own evolving bond hung in the balance as they rejoined the symposium, prepared to shape the course of history. As Raymond and Uma rejoined the symposium, the auditorium buzzed with excitement. The delegates' animated discussions about the couple's demonstration were suddenly interrupted by the arrival of an unexpected visitor. Dr. Zyra Zen, a Krenim xenobiologist of considerable renown, strode into the hall. Her scaled skin shimmered under the lights, and her eyes darted from Raymond to Uma with intense curiosity. "Fascinating," Dr. Zen said, approaching the couple. "I've never seen anything quite like your bioenergetic field. Would you be open to some non-invasive tests? I believe your connection could revolutionize our understanding of hybrid biology." Raymond and Uma exchanged glances, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing in silent communication. After a moment, they turned to Dr. Elena Rossi, who nodded encouragingly. "We'd be honored to contribute to your research, Dr. Zen," Uma replied. "What did you have in mind?" The Krenim scientists led them to a specially equipped laboratory within the convention center. The room hummed with advanced technology, holographic displays flickering to life as they entered. "Please, stand here," Dr. Zen instructed, gesturing to a circular platform in the center of the lab. As Raymond and Uma took their positions, a shimmering field of energy enveloped them. Dr. Zen's fingers flew over a control panel, adjusting parameters and capturing data. "Remarkable," she murmured, her eyes wide. "Your cellular structures, they're quantum entangled. It's as if you're operating on a shared wavelength at the molecular level." The couple stood motionless, their hands clasped tightly as the scans continued. Suddenly, their bioenergetic field flared, expanding rapidly beyond the confines of the scanning equipment. Dr. Zen gasped as the field washed over her. For a brief moment, she felt her consciousness merge with Raymond and Uma's, experiencing their connection firsthand. The sensation was overwhelming, a rush of shared thoughts, emotions, and sensations flooding her mind. As quickly as it had expanded, the field retracted. Dr. Zen stumbled back, steadying herself against a nearby console. Her team of researchers, who had also been caught in the field's expansion, blinked in astonishment. "That was incredible," one of the assistants breathed, his voice filled with awe. Dr. Zen's mind raced with the implications of what she'd just experienced. "We need to explore this further," she said, her voice filled with excitement. "With your permission, I'd like to attempt replicating aspects of your connection in other human-alien pairs." Before Raymond and Uma could respond, Captain Hawkins burst into the lab, his face grim. "We've got a situation," he announced. "My team's intercepted communications from an anti-hybrid group. They're planning to sabotage the symposium." Dr. Xander Voss, who had been observing the test from a corner of the lab, stepped forward. "I have an idea," he said, his eyes gleaming with intensity. "We could use Raymond and Uma's abilities to enhance a group of volunteers. Create a network of empathically linked individuals to bolster our security." Raymond and Uma shared a look, their bioluminescent patterns flickering rapidly. After a moment of silent communication, they nodded in agreement. "We'll do it," Raymond said, "if it means protecting the symposium and everything we've worked for." The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. Dr. Voss and Dr. Zen worked together, combining their research to develop a temporary enhancement procedure. A small group of volunteers, including Captain Hawkins, underwent the process under Raymond and Uma's guidance. As the enhanced security team took their positions throughout the convention center, Raymond and Uma stood at the heart of their network. Their bioluminescent patterns pulsed steadily, maintaining the empathic link between the volunteers. "I'm picking up something near the east entrance," Captain Hawkins' voice echoed in their shared consciousness. A group of individuals with hostile intent. Raymond and Uma focused their abilities, channeling their enhanced perception through the network. They sensed a cluster of minds filled with anger and fear, approaching the building with malicious purpose. "That's them," Uma confirmed. "Aldrich Kane and his extremists." The security team moved with unprecedented coordination, their shared awareness allowing them to anticipate and counter the intruder's every move. Within minutes, Kane and his followers were apprehended, their plans of sabotage thwarted before they could cause any harm. As news of the foiled attack spread, Raymond and Uma found themselves at the center of a media frenzy. Cameras flashed and reporters clamored for statements, hailing the couple as heroes. Exhausted from the intense use of their abilities, Raymond and Uma retreated to a private suite provided by the symposium organizers. As the door closed behind them, shutting out the noise and excitement of the outside world, they finally allowed themselves to relax. "We did it," Uma said softly, her bioluminescent patterns dimming to a gentle glow. Raymond pulled her close, their patterns synchronizing as their bodies pressed together. "We did," he murmured, his lips finding hers. As their kiss deepened, their bioenergetic field intensified, filling the room with shimmering light. Their connection, strengthened by the day's events, reached new heights of intimacy and understanding. Unbeknownst to the couple, their heightened emotional state caused their bioluminescent patterns to pulse with unprecedented intensity. Sensitive equipment throughout the convention center detected the surge, drawing the attention of both Dr. Zen and Dr. Voss. In their respective laboratories, the two scientists pored over the incoming data, their minds racing with new theories about the true extent of Raymond and Uma's evolving abilities. As the night wore on, they worked feverishly, each convinced that they were on the brink of a breakthrough that could reshape the future of human-alien relations. Meanwhile, the bioenergetic field generated by Raymond and Uma's passionate encounter briefly expanded beyond the confines of their suite. The subtle influence rippled through the convention center, touching the dreams and emotions of the sleeping attendees. As the first light of dawn broke over the New York skyline, Raymond and Uma stirred from their sleep, their bodies still intertwined. Their bioluminescent patterns pulsed in perfect harmony, a visual representation of their deepened bond. "Good morning," Raymond whispered, brushing a strand of hair from Uma's face. Uma smiled, her eyes still closed. "Morning," she murmured, "ready for another day of changing the world?" As they prepared to face the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead, neither Raymond nor Uma realized the full impact their intimate encounter had on those around them. The symposium was nowhere near the end, and the true implications of their evolving abilities were only beginning to unfold. As the first rays of sunlight filtered through the curtains, Raymond and Uma reluctantly disentangled themselves from each other's embrace. Their bioluminescent patterns still pulsed in perfect harmony, a visual testament to their deepened connection. "Ready to face another day?" Raymond asked, his voice a soft whisper. Uma nodded, her eyes sparkling with tenacity. "Always, especially with you by my side." They dressed quickly and made their way back to the main auditorium, where the symposium was already buzzing with activity. As they entered, heads turned, and a hush fell over the crowd. Their synchronized bioluminescent patterns drew gasps of awe from the assembled scientists and diplomats. Dr. Zaira Zen approached them first, her scaled skin shimmering under the bright lights of the auditorium. "Raymond, Uma," she said, her voice tinged with excitement, "I have a proposal for you. We've set up a series of isolation chambers to test the limits of your empathic abilities. Would you be willing to participate?" Before they could respond, Dr. Xander Voss stepped forward, his eyes gleaming with intensity. "I also have a proposition," he interjected. "There are several human-alien couples eager to replicate your unique bond. I believe we can use your bioenergetic field to jumpstart similar connections." Raymond and Uma exchanged glances, their patterns flickering in silent communication. After a moment, Uma spoke. "We're open to both experiments, but we'll need more details." Dr. Zen led them to a nearby laboratory, where a row of isolation chambers stood ready. "We've placed volunteers from different alien species in each chamber," she explained. "Your task is to establish a bioenergetic connection with them from increasing distances." Raymond and Uma positioned themselves at the starting point, their hands clasped tightly. As they focused their abilities, Their combined bioenergetic field expanded, reaching out to the first chamber. A luminary volunteer inside gasped as the connection formed, her own bioluminescent patterns briefly synchronizing with the couple's. With each successive chamber, Raymond and Uma pushed their abilities further. They successfully linked with a Krenim in the next building, then a Xyloxian across the street. Their range seemed to grow exponentially with each attempt. Extraordinary, Dr. Zen murmured, furiously taking notes. The implications for long-range empathic communication are staggering. As they concluded Dr. Zen's experiment, Dr. Voss ushered them to another lab. Here, several human-alien couples waited nervously. We prepared them with a series of treatments, Voss explained. Now, we need you to expose them to your synchronized bioenergetic field. Raymond and Uma stood in the center of the room, surrounded by the expectant couples. They closed their eyes, focusing on amplifying their connection. Their bioluminescent patterns intensified, casting a soft glow over the room. The effect on the couples varied. Some reported a mild increase in empathic awareness, while others showed no change at all. However, as Raymond and Uma's field washed over Dr. Marcus Gray and his Krenim partner, Lyravex, something unexpected happened. Gray and Lyravex's bodies began to emit a faint glow, their newly formed bioluminescent patterns pulsing in sync with each other and with Raymond and Uma's. The room erupted in excited chatter as scientists rushed to document this unprecedented development. "We did it," Lyravex whispered, staring in wonder at her glowing skin. Gray nodded, his eyes wide with amazement. "I can feel your thoughts, your emotions. It's incredible." As word of these successful experiments spread, the symposium experienced a surge of interest. New alien delegations arrived hourly, eager to explore the possibility of forming similar bonds. The event spilled out of the convention center, taking over neighboring buildings to accommodate the influx of attendees. Amidst the growing excitement, Captain Hawkins approached Raymond and Uma with a grim expression. "We've intercepted a message from Aldrich Kane," he said in a low voice. "There's a network of human supremacist groups planning attacks on hybrid communities worldwide." Raymond's face hardened. "We need to stop them." Uma nodded, her eyes flashing with perseverance. "We can use our abilities to create a global network of hybrids. Share information, coordinate responses." They quickly assembled a team, including Dr. Rossi, Captain Hawkins, and the newly bonded pair of Dr. Gray and Lyravex. Together, they developed a protocol for safely extending Raymond and Uma's bioenergetic field on a global scale. As preparations continued, Raymond and Uma found themselves in a specially designed chamber at the heart of the convention center. The walls hummed with advanced luminary technology, designed to amplify and project their bioenergetic field across the globe. Raymond took Uma's hands in his, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing in perfect synchronization. "Are you ready?" he asked softly. Uma squeezed his hands, her eyes meeting his. "Together," she replied. As they prepared to initiate the worldwide empathic link, the air around them seemed to crackle with energy. The chamber's technology came to life, surrounding them in a cocoon of pulsating light. Raymond and Uma closed their eyes, focusing all their energy on expanding their connection. Their bioenergetic field began to grow, pushing against the boundaries of the chamber. As it expanded further, they felt the first tendrils of contact with other hybrid minds across the globe. The sensation was overwhelming, a flood of thoughts, emotions, and sensations from countless individuals. In that moment, as their consciousness expanded to encompass the world, Raymond and Uma stood on the precipice of a new era in human-alien relations. The global empathic link they were about to forge had the potential to unite Earth's hybrid population against a common threat, or unleash unforeseen consequences that could reshape the future of interspecies cooperation forever. As Raymond and Uma stood at the heart of the chamber, their hands intertwined and their bioluminescent patterns pulsing in unison, They felt the first tendrils of their bioenergetic field reaching out across the globe. The sensation was unlike anything they had experienced before, a vast tapestry of minds and emotions unfurling before them. Suddenly, the chamber filled with a blinding light as their field expanded at an unprecedented rate. Raymond gasped, his grip on Uma's hands tightening. It's too much, he whispered, his voice strained. Uma nodded, her eyes wide with a mixture of awe and concern. We have to maintain control, she replied, her own voice barely audible over the hum of the chamber's technology. As their consciousness expanded, they became aware of a surge of energy rippling through the global hybrid population. Countless minds lit up like beacons, their latent abilities suddenly amplified beyond their usual limits. In New York City, a young hybrid woman walking down the street suddenly found herself overwhelmed by the thoughts and emotions of everyone around her. She stumbled, her hand brushing against a parked car. The vehicle's alarm system went haywire, setting off a chain reaction of malfunctioning electronics along the block. Similar scenes played out in cities across the world. In Tokyo, a hybrid businessman inadvertently caused a temporary blackout in his office building. In London, a hybrid child's heightened telekinetic abilities sent objects flying in a crowded park. Back at the symposium, Captain Hawkins burst into the control room adjacent to Raymond and Uma's chamber. We've got reports coming in from all over the world, he shouted over the din of alarms and frantic voices. Hybrid abilities are going haywire. We need to contain this. Dr. Elena Rossi, her face pale with concern, was already typing furiously at a computer terminal. I'm working on modifying the suppression agent, she called out. We need to distribute it globally and fast. As chaos unfolded around the world, the empathic network Raymond and Uma had created began to serve its intended purpose. Through the sea of amplified emotions and thoughts, they detected pockets of concentrated hatred and fear, the anti-hybrid extremist cells they had set out to uncover. There, Raymond said, his voice strained with effort. I can sense them. London, Sydney, Rio de Janeiro. Uma nodded, her brow furrowed in concentration. I see them too. We need to relay this information to law enforcement. Captain Hawkins, overhearing their exchange, immediately began coordinating with international agencies. Within minutes, raids were being launched against the identified extremist cells. In London, a team of officers stormed a nondescript warehouse, catching a group of human supremacists off guard. However, as they moved to make arrests, the hybrid abilities of several officers flared unexpectedly. One officer accidentally magnetized his handcuffs, causing them to stick to a metal shelving unit. Another's heightened strength caused him to rip a door off its hinges. In the resulting confusion, two of the extremists managed to slip away. Similar scenes played out in other cities, with the amplified hybrid abilities both aiding and complicating the operations. At the symposium, Dr. Zyra Zen and Dr. Xander Voss watched in fascination as data poured in from around the globe. The implications of this are staggering, Dr. Zen murmured, her scaled fingers flying over a holographic display. Dr. Voss nodded, his eyes gleaming with excitement. We're witnessing the birth of a new era in human-alien relations. The potential applications are endless. In another part of the facility, Dr. Marcus Gray and Lyravex found themselves caught in the wave of amplified abilities. Their newly formed bond deepened exponentially, their minds merging in a way that blurred the lines between human and Krenim consciousness. Marcus, Lyravex gasped, her bioluminescent patterns flaring brightly. I can see your world through your eyes. Dr. Gray nodded, his own patterns pulsing in sync with hers. And I can see yours. It's incredible. As the global link began to stabilize, Raymond and Uma felt the strain of maintaining such a vast connection. Their bioluminescent patterns flickered erratically, and they swayed on their feet. Raymond, Uma whispered, her voice weak. "I don't know how much longer we can hold this." Before Raymond could respond, they both collapsed, their patterns dimming to a faint glow. Medical teams rushed into the chamber, quickly assessing their condition and moving them to a nearby infirmary. As Raymond and Uma were being tended to, the Galactic Council representatives at the symposium called for an emergency session. The main auditorium buzzed with tense energy as delegates from various species debated the implications of what had just occurred. This level of empathic ability is unprecedented, a Xyloxian representative argued. We must implement strict regulations to prevent misuse. A Luminari delegate countered. But consider the potential for galactic cooperation. This could be the key to lasting peace between species. As the debate raged on, Dr. Rossi worked tirelessly to distribute the modified suppression agent to affected hybrids around the world. Gradually, reports of uncontrolled abilities began to decrease. In the infirmary, Raymond stirred, his eyes fluttering open. He immediately reached out, his hands searching for Uma's. As their fingers intertwined, he realized with a start that he could still sense her emotions, even though they were no longer actively maintaining the global link. "Uma," he murmured, turning his head to meet her gaze. "Can you feel it?" She nodded, a mixture of wonder and concern in her eyes. "It's different now. More permanent." As they lay there, recovering from the ordeal, they became aware of a commotion outside the infirmary. A group of young hybrids had gathered, their faces pressed against the observation window. "They're awake," one of them exclaimed, their voice muffled through the glass. "We need their help. We need to understand what's happening to us." Raymond and Uma exchanged glances, the weight of their new responsibilities settling upon them. They had changed the world, and now they would have to guide it through the aftermath of the global empathic link event. The world had changed, and they found themselves at the center of it all. As Raymond and Uma recovered in the infirmary, Dr. Elena Rossi approached their beds, her face a mixture of concern and excitement. "How are you feeling?" she asked, checking their vital signs on a nearby monitor. Raymond sat up slowly, wincing slightly. "Like I've run a mental marathon," he replied, rubbing his temples. "But I think we're okay. Right, Uma?" Uma nodded, her bioluminescent patterns flickering softly. "We're tired, but different. It's as if our connection has deepened somehow." Dr. Rossi made a note on her tablet. "That's fascinating. We'll need to run some tests to understand the full extent of these changes." She paused, looking at them both intently. "There's something else. The symposium organizers want to discuss next steps. Are you up for a meeting?" Raymond and Uma exchanged glances, then nodded in unison. "We're ready," Uma said. Hours later, they found themselves in a crowded conference room. Captain Hawkins stood at the head of the table, his expression grave. "The events of the past few days have accelerated our timeline," he began. "We're establishing an international hybrid research center at Nexus Prime. Dr. Rossi will lead the scientific team, and we'd like you both to be central to our ongoing studies." Dr. Xander Voss, seated across from them, leaned forward eagerly. "We've seen remarkable results with your bond, and now with Dr. Gray and Lyravex. I propose we begin a series of controlled bonding experiments between human and alien volunteers." Raymond felt a flicker of unease. "Are you sure that's safe?" Dr. Voss nodded emphatically. "We'll take every precaution. Your oversight will be crucial in monitoring and facilitating the process." As the meeting continued, plans took shape. The research center would be a hub for hybrid studies, while Captain Hawkins would form a specialized hybrid peacekeeping force to address the unique challenges posed by emerging hybrid abilities. Weeks passed in a blur of activity. Nexus Prime transformed, with new laboratories and training facilities sprouting up across the compound. Scientists and volunteers from around the world poured in, eager to be part of this groundbreaking work. Raymond and Uma found themselves at the heart of it all, overseeing Dr. Voss's bonding experiments. They stood in a specially designed chamber, watching as a human scientist and a Xyloxian diplomat prepared for their first attempt at bioenergetic bonding. "Remember," Uma said softly, addressing the nervous pair, "focus on opening yourselves to each other. Don't force it." Raymond nodded, adding, "We'll be here to guide you through the process." As the experiment began, Raymond and Uma extended their own bioenergetic field, creating a supportive environment for the bonding attempt. They felt the tentative connection forming between the human and Xyloxian, a faint echo of their own bond. Hours later, as they reviewed the results with Dr. Voss, it was clear that progress would be slow. They achieved a basic empathic awareness, Dr. Voss mused, studying the data, but nothing close to your level of connection. We need to identify the key factors that make some bonds stronger than others. Meanwhile, in another part of the facility, Captain Hawkins put a group of hybrid recruits through their paces. "Control is everything," he barked, watching as a young woman with enhanced strength struggled to modulate her abilities. "You need to be able to switch your powers on and off at will." Raymond and Uma had helped develop the training regimen, drawing on their own experiences. They watched from an observation deck as the recruits practiced, their progress both encouraging and concerning. "They're learning quickly," Raymond observed, "but the potential for abuse of these abilities is huge." Uma squeezed his hand. "That's why this work is so important. We need to understand these powers to help people use them responsibly." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from Dr. Rossi. "We've got a situation." Her voice crackled over the intercom. "Reports of unauthorized hybridization experiments are coming in from around the globe. Underground labs, trying to replicate our work." Captain Hawkins's voice joined the call. "I'm mobilizing the peacekeeping force. We need to shut these operations down before someone gets hurt." As the hybrid peacekeeping force prepared for their first major operation, tensions at Nexus Prime reached a fever pitch. The arrival of a Galactic Council delegation, led by the imposing Arcturian commander HFY, added another layer of complexity to an already volatile situation. Raymond and Uma found themselves at the center of a high-stakes demonstration, tasked with showcasing the potential of their abilities to the galactic representatives. They stood in the main atrium of Nexus Prime, surrounded by a mix of human scientists, alien diplomats, and curious onlookers. "What we're about to attempt," Raymond explained, his voice steady despite the pressure, "is a facility-wide empathic network. It will allow instantaneous communication and coordination among all personnel." Uma closed her eyes, her bioluminescent patterns brightening. "Please, everyone, open your minds to the connection. You may feel a slight tingling sensation." As Raymond and Uma focused their energy, the air in the atrium seemed to thicken. A wave of gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd as people began to sense each other's presence on a deeper level. HFY, the Arcturian commander, tilted his head, his crystalline eyes widening. "Fascinating," he rumbled. "I can sense the thoughts and emotions of everyone in this facility." The demonstration was cut short by a piercing alarm. Captain Hawkins's voice boomed over the intercom. "Security breach. All personnel to emergency stations." Through their empathic network, Raymond and Uma immediately sensed the panic and confusion spreading through Nexus Prime. They detected a nod of malevolent intent near the power core, the infiltrators. "This way," Raymond called out, leading a group of security personnel through the winding corridors of the facility. Uma coordinated with other teams through their mental link, guiding them to intercept the remaining saboteurs. As they neared the power core, an explosion rocked the facility. Alarms blared as containment field warnings flashed on every screen. Raymond and Uma exchanged a determined look before sprinting towards the damaged section. The scene that greeted them was chaos. Smoke billowed from ruptured conduits, and the air crackled with unstable energy. Dr. Rossi's voice cut through the din. The containment fields are failing. If those hybrid compounds are released... We've got this, Uma interrupted, her voice steady despite the fear Raymond could feel through their bond. Together, they stretched out their hands, calling upon every ounce of their bioenergetic abilities. A shimmering field of energy began to form around the damaged systems, containing the volatile compounds and stabilizing the fluctuating power levels. As engineering teams worked feverishly to repair the damage, Raymond and Uma stood firm, their bodies glowing with an intensity that lit up the entire chamber. Through gritted teeth, Raymond managed to say, "We can't hold this forever." Uma nodded, sweat beading on her brow. Dr. Rossi, how much longer? Before the scientist could answer, a new voice boomed through the chamber. It was HFY, the Arcturian commander. "Hold on, humans. Help is coming." Moments later, the facility's power level surged as energy from the Galactic Council ship poured into Nexus Prime systems. With this boost, the engineering team managed to bring the main systems back online, slowly relieving the strain on Raymond and Uma. As the crisis abated, the toll of their exertion became apparent. Raymond's vision blurred, and he felt Uma's consciousness flickering at the edge of his awareness. Their bioluminescent patterns pulsed erratically, no longer in perfect sync. "Uma," he whispered, reaching for her hand as darkness crept into the edges of his vision. "Stay with me." The last thing Raymond saw before losing consciousness was Dr. Rossi rushing towards him, her face a mask of concern. As he slipped into darkness, he clung to the faint pulse of Uma's presence in his mind, a lifeline in the encroaching void. As he drifted in darkness, Raymond clung to the faint thread of Uma's presence, their connection a lifeline in the vast emptiness. Time lost all meaning as Raymond floated in and out of consciousness. Occasionally, he caught snippets of hushed voices and the beeping of medical equipment, Dr. Rossi's worried tones, Captain Hawkins's gruff commands, and the melodic language of the luminary all filtered through the haze. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Raymond's eyes fluttered open. He found himself in a sterile medical bay, surrounded by an array of unfamiliar equipment. Turning his head, he saw Uma in the adjacent bed, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing softly. "Uma," he croaked, his voice barely above a whisper. Her eyes opened, immediately finding his. "Raymond," she breathed, relief washing over her face. Dr. Elena Rossi appeared between them, her expression a mixture of concern and excitement. "Welcome back," she said, checking their vital signs on a holographic display. "You've been in medical stasis for a week." Raymond tried to sit up, but his body felt heavy and unresponsive. "What happened?" he asked, memories of the explosion and their desperate attempt to contain it flooding back. Dr. Rossi placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You saved Nexus Prime, but the strain of containing that energy nearly killed you both. Your hybrid physiology, it's undergone significant changes." As if on cue, Raymond became aware of a new sensation coursing through his body. It felt as if every cell was humming with energy, more alive than ever before. He glanced at Uma, seeing the same realization dawning in her eyes. "We've detected enhanced regenerative properties and increased energy efficiency in your cells," Dr. Rossi explained. "It's allowing for faster recovery and potentially longer periods of sustained ability use." Over the next few days, Raymond and Uma underwent a battery of tests as Dr. Rossi and her team worked to understand the full extent of their evolution. They learned of the events that had transpired during their unconsciousness. The new security measures implemented by Captain Hawkins and ZYXLore, the polarizing public reaction to hybrids, and the arrival of Dr. Marcus Gray and Lyravex to assist with ongoing research. As their strength returned, Raymond and Uma discovered that their empathic connection had expanded beyond anything they'd previously experienced. During a routine scan, Raymond inadvertently influenced the molecular structure of the equipment, causing it to fluctuate wildly. Dr. Xander Voss, who had been observing the test, let out a low whistle. "Incredible," he murmured, furiously taking notes. "You're perceiving and influencing bioenergetic fields at a molecular level." The incident prompted Dr. Rossi to accelerate the development of specialized containment suits for Raymond and Uma. Working in collaboration with Zurlum, the lead Luminari bioengineer, they crafted suits that incorporated both human and alien technology. These suits should help you control your expanded bioenergetic field. Zurlum explained as Raymond and Uma donned the sleek, form-fitting garments for the first time. They'll also prevent unintended influences on your surroundings. As the couple stepped out of the medical ward, their combined bioenergetic field pulsed with unprecedented power. Nearby equipment flickered, and several hybrid volunteers in the corridor gasped as they experienced a momentary surge in their own abilities. Captain Hawkins, who had been waiting outside, raised an eyebrow. "I see what you mean about containment," he said to Dr. Rossi. Turning to Raymond and Uma, he added, "We need to talk about your future roles here at Nexus Prime." In a private conference room, Captain Hawkins laid out his proposal for a specialized task force under Raymond and Uma's guidance. "Your enhanced empathic network could be invaluable for critical missions and emergency response situations," he explained. Raymond and Uma exchanged glances, their new abilities allowing for a silent, instantaneous exchange of thoughts and emotions. They could sense the potential of what Hawkins was suggesting, but also the immense responsibility it entailed. "We understand the strategic importance," Uma said carefully, "but we need time to fully grasp our new capabilities before taking on such a role." Raymond nodded in agreement. "We want to help, to continue our work here, but we need to ensure we can do so safely." Captain Hawkins leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "Fair enough. Dr. Rossi and the Luminari team have emphasized the need for a gradual reintegration process. We'll start slow, focusing on controlled experiments and training exercises." As they left the conference room, Raymond and Uma were met by Dr. Gray and Lyrovex. The successfully bonded human Krenim pair had been eager to meet them since their awakening. "We've been assisting with the bonding experiments," Dr. Gray explained, his eyes alight with scientific curiosity. "Your evolved state could provide valuable insights into the process." Lyrovex nodded, her crystalline features shimmering. "We've made progress, but there's still so much to learn. Would you be willing to participate in some comparative studies?" Before Raymond and Uma could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Captain Hawkins's voice crackled over the intercom. "All personnel, report to emergency stations. We have a situation in Lab 7. Raymond and Uma shared a determined look. This was their chance to test their new abilities in a controlled environment. As they rushed towards Lab 7, their containment suits humming with energy, they knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in their lives as evolved hybrids. Hybrids as evolved humans. As they approached Lab 7, the urgency of the situation pushed their concerns to the background. The scene that greeted them was one of controlled chaos. Scientists in protective gear rushed about, securing equipment and data as alarms blared. Dr. Rossi stood at the center, directing the response with calm efficiency. "Raymond, Uma," she called out as they entered, "we have a containment breach in the hybrid compound storage unit. The unstable elements are reacting unpredictably." Captain Hawkins appeared beside them, his face grim. "This is our chance to see what you can do. Are you ready?" Raymond and Uma exchanged a glance, their new connection allowing for instantaneous communication. They nodded in unison. "We're ready," Uma said, her voice steady. As they approached the compromised storage unit, Raymond felt the familiar tingle of his bioenergetic field expanding. The containment suit hummed, working to keep his abilities in check. Uma's presence in his mind was a constant, reassuring anchor. Dr. Rossi's voice came through their comm units. Focus on stabilizing the molecular structure of the compounds. Your ability to manipulate bioenergetic fields at the molecular level should allow you to neutralize the volatile elements. Raymond and Uma raised their hands, directing their combined energy towards a swirling mass of unstable compounds. The air crackled with energy as their bioenergetic fields interacted with the volatile substances. At first, the compounds seemed to resist their efforts, pulsing and shifting erratically. But as Raymond and Uma deepened their focus, drawing on their newfound strength, the chaotic movement began to slow. "It's working," Dr. Rossi reported, her voice tense with concentration as she monitored the readings. "The molecular structure is stabilizing." For several tense minutes, Raymond and Uma maintained their efforts, sweat beading on their brows as they pushed their evolved abilities to their limits. Gradually, the violent reactions within the storage unit subsided, the compound settling into a stable state. As the last traces of instability faded, Raymond felt a wave of exhaustion wash over him. He sensed a similar fatigue from Uma through their bond. They lowered their hands, the glow of their bioenergetic fields dimming. Captain Hawkins approached, his expression a mix of relief and admiration. "Excellent work, both of you. You've just saved a lot of lives and invaluable research." Dr. Rossi hurried over, her eyes wide with excitement. "The data we've collected from this incident is remarkable. Your ability to influence molecular structures at this level. It opens up possibilities we hadn't even considered." As the immediate crisis passed, Raymond and Uma found themselves at the center of a flurry of activity. Scientists and security personnel swarmed around them, asking questions and offering congratulations. In the days that followed, life at Nexus Prime took on a new rhythm. Dr. Rossi, energized by the potential demonstrated during the lab incident, launched into a new phase of research. She designed a series of controlled experiments to test the limits of Raymond and Uma's molecular manipulation abilities. One morning, Raymond found himself standing in a specially designed chamber, facing a tray of wilted plants. Dr. Rossi's voice came through the intercom. "Let's see if you can accelerate their growth and repair the damage." Raymond took a deep breath, extending his hands towards the plants. He felt Uma's presence in his mind, supporting him even from a distance. Focusing his energy, he visualized the cellular structure of the plants, willing them to regenerate and grow. To his amazement, the wilted leaves began to straighten and turn a vibrant green. New shoots sprouted and unfurled before his eyes. Within minutes, the tray was filled with healthy, thriving plants. Dr. Rossi's excitement was palpable as she entered the chamber. Incredible! The implications for agriculture alone are staggering. And if we can apply this to human tissue. Meanwhile, Captain Hawkins proceeded with the formation of the Specialized Task Force. Raymond and Uma found themselves working closely with a select group of hybrid individuals, each chosen for their unique abilities and psychological stability. During one of their first training sessions, Raymond and Uma stood before the assembled team in the newly constructed research wing. The advanced bioenergetic sensors hummed softly in the background. "Today, we're going to attempt to establish a group empathic link," Uma explained. "It will allow us to communicate and coordinate our actions with unprecedented efficiency." As Raymond and Uma extended their empathic field, the hybrid team members gasped, experiencing the connection for the first time. Thoughts and emotions flowed between them, creating a web of shared consciousness. "Now," Raymond instructed, his voice steady despite the strain of maintaining the link, "we'll run through a series of simulated crisis scenarios. Remember, the key is to work as a single, coordinated unit." Over the next few hours, the team tackled increasingly complex challenges, from containing simulated biohazards to coordinating mock evacuation efforts. With each exercise, their responses grew smoother and more efficient. As the training session concluded, Captain Hawkins nodded approvingly. Impressive progress. If we can maintain this level of coordination in the field, we'll be able to respond to crises faster and more effectively than ever before. The success of these initial experiments and training sessions fueled the momentum of the hybrid integration efforts. Dr. Xander Voss, inspired by the effectiveness of Raymond and Uma's containment suits, threw himself into developing similar technology for other hybrid pairs. One afternoon, Raymond and Uma found themselves in Voss's lab, surrounded by prototypes and complex schematics. The scientist's eyes gleamed with excitement as he explained his latest breakthrough. By incorporating elements of Luminari biotech, I've managed to create a standardized system that should allow bonded couples to safely expand their bioenergetic fields, Voss said, holding up a sleek, silvery garment. It's not as advanced as your suits, of course, but it's a start. As Raymond examined the prototype, he felt a surge of hope. This could change everything, he mused. If more hybrids can safely develop and use their abilities. Uma nodded, completing his thought. It could go a long way towards addressing the fears and misconceptions about hybrids. Their efforts to change public perception extended beyond the labs and training rooms of Nexus Prime. Raymond and Uma found themselves participating in a series of public appearances and educational seminars, broadcast globally to address concerns about hybrid evolution. During one such seminar, they stood before a large audience, cameras transmitting their image to millions around the world. A large tank of visibly contaminated water sat on the stage before them. What you're about to see, Raymond explained, his voice calm and assured, is a practical application of our evolved abilities. As the cameras rolled, Raymond and Uma joined hands, their bioenergetic fields merging and expanding. They directed their combined energy towards the tank, focusing on the molecular structure of the contaminants. The audience watched in awe as the murky water began to clear, impurities breaking down and separating out. Within minutes, the tank was filled with crystal-clear, potable water. The demonstration was met with a mix of applause and murmurs of amazement. As Raymond and Uma fielded questions from the audience, they could sense a shift in the atmosphere, fear and skepticism giving way to cautious optimism and curiosity. But even as progress was made, new challenges emerged. The arrival of a Galactic Council ethical oversight team, led by the Arcturian ethicist Zilnura, added a new layer of complexity to their work. In a meeting with the oversight team, Raymond and Uma found themselves facing probing questions about the ethical implications of their evolved abilities. Zilnura, his crystalline features impassive, leaned forward. While the potential benefits of your abilities are clear, we must consider the risks. How can we ensure that such power is not misused or exploited? It was a question that had greatly troubled on Raymond and Uma's minds, and one they knew would shape the future of hybrid integration efforts on Earth and beyond. As they prepared to respond, they understood that their answer would have far-reaching consequences for the delicate balance between human, hybrid, and alien societies. Relations. It was a question that demanded careful consideration and a thoughtful response. Before Raymond could formulate an answer, alarms blared throughout the facility. Captain Hawkins burst into the room, his face taut with urgency. "We need you both in the specialized chamber immediately," he said, gesturing for Raymond and Uma to follow. "We're initiating the Continental Empathic Network trial in Australia." As they rushed through the corridors, Dr. Rossi fell into step beside them, her tablet displaying a flurry of data. "We've been preparing for this for weeks, but there's always an element of unpredictability with new applications of your abilities." They entered the chamber, a high-tech marvel of human and alien engineering. The walls were lined with advanced sensors, their soft hum a counterpoint to the frantic activity around them. Raymond and Uma took their positions at the center of the room, their containment suits gleaming under the harsh lights. "Remember," Dr. Rossi said as technicians made final adjustments, "focus on establishing a low-level empathic connection across the continent. We're aiming for information sharing and basic emotional links, not full cognitive integration. Raymond nodded, feeling Uma's steady presence in his mind. They clasped hands, their bioenergetic fields beginning to merge and expand. As they focused their combined will on the task at hand, the sensors around them came alive, tracking the invisible tendrils of energy stretching out across the vast distances of Australia. Suddenly, a surge of power coursed through the chamber. The lights flickered, and several monitors sparked ominously. Raymond felt a jolt of alarm through his connection with Uma, but they maintained their concentration, pushing through the discomfort. Power surge detected, a technician called out. Initiating emergency protocols. Captain Hawkins's voice came through the intercom, tense but controlled. Keep going. We're shutting down non-essential systems to compensate. Despite the chaos around them, Raymond and Uma pressed on. They could feel the network taking shape, tenuous at first, then growing stronger. Across Australia, key hybrid individuals were being linked, their minds brushing against each other in a delicate web of shared consciousness. In the nearby command center, the specialized task force watched in awe as the network sprang to life. Streams of data flowed across their screens, representing the real-time exchange of information and emotions. We're picking up multiple potential security threats, one of the task force members reported. Anti-hybrid extremist group gathering in Sydney, near the hybrid community in Darling Harbour. Captain Hawkins leaned forward, his eyes scanning the incoming data. Alert local law enforcement immediately. This is exactly the kind of early warning system we've been working towards. Back in the chamber, Raymond and Uma were oblivious to the practical applications of their work. Their world had narrowed to the pulsing energy flowing through and around them. Through their shared consciousness, they could sense the vastness of the continent, feel the ebb and flow of emotions from countless minds linked to the network. Dr. Rossi and the Luminari team, led by Zarlum, huddled around a bank of monitors, their faces illuminated by the glow of complex data streams. "Look at this pattern," Dr. Rossi said, pointing to a fluctuating graph. "Their bioenergetic field is displaying characteristics we've never seen before." Zarlum nodded, her luminescent skin pulsing with concern. "It appears their abilities are continuing to evolve, even as they use them. The implications are significant." As the trial progressed, Raymond and Uma began testing the network's capabilities. They sent out pulses of information, coordinating responses to simulated emergencies across the continent. The speed and efficiency of the system were beyond their wildest expectations. However, the strain of maintaining the network soon became apparent. Raymond's vision began to blur, and he could feel Uma's fatigue through their bond. Their bioluminescent patterns, visible through their containment suits, started to flicker erratically. In a separate wing of the facility, Dr. Xander Voss watched the proceedings with growing excitement. He noticed an unexpected phenomenon among the human-alien pairs undergoing his experimental bonding treatments. "Fascinating," he muttered, furiously taking notes. "The expanded bioenergetic field is accelerating the bonding process. We're seeing unprecedented levels of empathic awareness and synchronization." As reports flooded in from across Australia, the mood in the command center shifted from cautious optimism to growing concern. Hybrid individuals connected to the network were reporting enhanced abilities and increased control, but also unsettling experiences of shared memories and emotions. Captain Hawkins was about to order a reduction in the network's power when an urgent communication came through from Melbourne. "Sir, the hybrid peacekeeping unit just prevented a major terrorist attack on the research facility. They're crediting the early warning from the empathic network." The captain's relief was short-lived as alarms began blaring throughout Nexus Prime. Dr. Rossi's voice came through the intercom, tight with worry. "Raymond and Uma's vital signs are becoming erratic. We need to shut this down now." Before they could act, the facility's systems came under attack. Screens flickered with warning messages as a coordinated cyber assault, traced to anti-hybrid extremist groups, attempted to breach their defenses. In the chamber, Raymond and Uma sensed the digital threat. Acting on instinct, they expanded their bioenergetic field to encompass Nexus Prime's entire infrastructure. Their minds merged with the facility's systems, identifying and neutralizing the malicious code with breathtaking speed. The successful defense came at a cost. The couple's action sent a shockwave through the continental network, causing a surge in hybrid abilities across Australia. Cities activated containment protocols as reports of uncontrolled power manifestations poured in. Dr. Rossi and Zaralum exchanged a grim look. "We have to terminate the trial," Dr. Rossi said, her fingers flying over the control panel. Initiating emergency shutdown sequence. As the shutdown process began, Raymond and Uma remained suspended in the chamber, their bodies glowing with intense bioluminescence. The facility's alarms blared as the technical team struggled to safely disengage them from the complex web of connections they had created. Captain Hawkins mobilized a specialized task force, preparing for a potential intervention. In the corridors of Nexus Prime, personnel rushed to their emergency stations, the air thick with tension and the unknown. As the seconds ticked by, Dr. Rossi and her team worked feverishly to prevent a catastrophic overload of Raymond and Uma's evolved abilities. The fate of the hybrid integration project, and possibly much more, hung in the balance as the crisis unfolded. As the crisis unfolded, Dr. Rossi's fingers flew across the control panel, initiating the emergency shutdown sequence. The facility's advanced containment systems roared to life, creating a series of shimmering energy barriers around the specialized chamber where Raymond and Uma remained suspended. "Containment field at 75% and rising," a technician called out, his voice barely audible over the blaring alarms. Captain Hawkins strode into the control room, his face a mask of willpower. "Status report," he demanded, surveying the chaotic scene. Dr. Rossi turned to him, her eyes reflecting the flickering emergency lights. "We're attempting to disengage Raymond and Uma from the network, but their bioenergetic field is resisting our efforts. We need more time." Hawkins nodded sharply. "You'll have it. I'm mobilizing the task force now." He tapped his comm unit, issuing rapid-fire orders to his team. In the adjacent lab, Dr. Xander Voss worked feverishly, his hands a blur as he modified the containment suit's control systems. "If we can dampen their evolved abilities," he muttered to himself, "we might just have a chance." Outside the facility, the effects of the network's sudden termination rippled across Australia. In Sydney, a hybrid peacekeeper stumbled mid-stride, her enhanced reflexes suddenly failing her. She caught herself against a wall, blinking in confusion as her temporarily boosted abilities faded. Back in Nexus Prime, Dr. Marcus Gray and Lyrovex exchanged a meaningful look. "We have to try," Marcus said, his voice low and urgent. "Our bond might be stable enough to anchor them." Lyrovex nodded, her luminescent skin pulsing with purpose. "It's risky, but we don't have a choice." They approached Dr. Rossi, quickly explaining their plan. Despite her initial hesitation, she agreed, recognizing the desperation of their situation. "Prepare the secondary chamber," she ordered, her voice strained but steady. As Marcus and Lyrovex entered the adjacent room, technicians swarmed around them, attaching sensors and calibrating equipment. The couple clasped hands, their bioenergetic fields merging with practiced ease. In the main chamber, Raymond and Uma's physical forms began to change. Their bioluminescent patterns shifted rapidly, forming complex, pulsating geometries that seemed to bend the very fabric of space around them. The reinforced walls groaned under the strain, microfractures spreading like spiderwebs across their surface. Dr. Voss burst into the control room, clutching a modified control unit. "The upgrades are ready," he announced, breathless. "But we'll need to apply them manually." Captain Hawkins turned to his team. "Volunteers?" he asked, knowing full well the danger involved. 3 technicians stepped forward, their faces set with dogged willpower. They donned protective suits and activated portable energy shields, preparing to enter the chamber. As the technicians worked to upgrade the containment suits, their equipment sparked and sputtered, overwhelmed by the intense bioenergetic field. Switching to manual override, one of them shouted, her voice crackling through the comm system. In the secondary chamber, Marcus and Lyravex's synchronized field began to interact with Raymond and Uma's chaotic energy. A visible pattern of light flowed between the 2 rooms, momentarily stabilizing the erratic pulses. Dr. Rossi leaned forward, her eyes widening as she analyzed the new data streaming across her screens. "This is it," she breathed, "the key to shutting it down safely." As the research team refined their approach, Captain Hawkins received an urgent communication. His face darkened as he listened to the report. "We've got multiple attacks on hybrid communities worldwide," he announced grimly. "Anti-hybrid extremists are taking advantage of the chaos." He turned to his second-in-command. "Deploy all available hybrid peacekeeping force units. Priority is protecting vulnerable populations and securing key facilities." In the main chamber, the combined effect of Marcus and Lyravex's stable field and the modified containment suits began to take hold. The violent energy pulses emanating from Raymond and Uma started to diminish, their bioluminescent patterns slowly stabilizing into a steady, synchronized rhythm. Dr. Rossi allowed herself a small sigh of relief. "Prepare for revival," she ordered, her voice tight with cautious optimism. "Medical teams on standby." As the containment field gradually lowered, Raymond and Uma's vital signs began to normalize. Their eyelids fluttered, signaling a return to consciousness. Just as the immediate crisis seemed to be passing, a new alarm blared through Nexus Prime. A technician at the long-range sensor station jerked upright, his face pale. "Massive energy signature detected entering the solar system," he reported, his voice trembling. "Initial scans suggest it's a fleet." Captain Hawkins's eyes narrowed as he processed this new threat. "The Galactic Council," he muttered, recognizing the implications. He turned to his team, his voice sharp with urgency. "Initiate global defense protocols. Recall all hybrid peacekeeping force units immediately." As Raymond and Uma slowly regained consciousness, the world around them was poised on the brink of a new crisis. The couple blinked groggily, trying to focus on the worried faces surrounding them, unaware that their actions had set in motion events that would reshape Earth's place in the galactic community. Dr. Rossi leaned over them, her face a mix of relief and concern. "Welcome back," she said softly. "How do you feel?" Raymond opened his mouth to respond, but before he could form words, Captain Hawkins stepped forward, his expression grave. "I'm sorry," he said, "but we don't have time for a full debrief. We need you both operational as soon as possible." Uma struggled to sit up, her muscles protesting the movement. "What's happening?" she asked, her voice hoarse. Hawkins's gaze flickered to the main view screen, where a representation of the approaching fleet loomed ominously. "We may have just started an interstellar incident," he said grimly, "and we need every asset we have to prevent it from becoming a catastrophe. Catastrophe! We need your help." Raymond and Uma exchanged a glance, their eyes conveying a mix of exhaustion and tenacity. Despite the lingering effects of their ordeal, they nodded in unison. "We're ready," Raymond said, his voice hoarse but steady. Dr. Rossi stepped forward, concern etched on her face. They need more time to recover. The strain on their systems was... "We don't have that luxury," Hawkins interrupted, his tone softening slightly as he turned to the couple. "I'm sorry, but Earth needs you now more than ever." As Raymond and Uma struggled to their feet, supported by medical staff, alarms blared throughout the facility. Dr. Rossi's team rushed to stabilize the couple's vital signs, making rapid adjustments to their containment suits. Planetary defense systems activated. A technician called out. All hybrid peacekeeping force units are being mobilized. Hawkins strode to a central control panel, his fingers flying across the interface. We're implementing a rapid response plan. Our priority is to present a unified front when the Galactic Council arrives. Dr. Voss burst into the room, his eyes wild with excitement. I've made a breakthrough, he announced, waving a data pad. If we can replicate aspects of Raymond and Uma's bond in other human-alien pairs, we might be able to create a planetary bioenergetic shield. Hawkins nodded sharply. Get to work on it immediately. We need every advantage we can get. As the facility buzzed with frantic activity, Dr. Marcus Gray and Lyravex approached Captain Hawkins. Sir, Marcus said, his voice steady, we'd like to volunteer for a diplomatic mission. Our bond could serve as a powerful symbol of Earth's progress in interspecies relations. Hawkins considered for a moment, then nodded. Agreed. We'll provide you with a specially equipped spacecraft. Your mission is to establish first contact and open a line of communication. As Marcus and Lyravex hurried off to prepare, Raymond and Uma stepped forward, their movements still unsteady but purposeful. We have an idea, Uma said, her voice gaining strength. We can use our evolved abilities to create an empathic link with the fleet's leaders. Show them our intentions directly. Dr. Rossi's eyes widened. The risks would be enormous. We have no idea how your abilities might interact across such vast distances. It's our best shot at avoiding conflict, Raymond insisted. Hawkins studied them intently before making his decision. Do it. Dr. Rossi, modify the chamber for this purpose. Integrate our most advanced communication arrays with the Luminari tech. As preparations for the empathic link began, reports flooded in from around the globe. Hybrid abilities were manifesting at an unprecedented rate, triggered by the stress of the impending encounter. Hybrid peacekeeping force units deployed to major cities, a communications officer reported. We're containing dangerous outbursts and providing support to new hybrids. Suddenly, the main screen flashed red. Multiple attacks detected, the officer called out. Anti-hybrid extremists are targeting infrastructure and hybrid communities. Hawkins cursed under his breath. Divert resources to counter these attacks. We can't let them destabilize our response. In the modified chamber, Raymond and Uma stood side by side, their containment suits gleaming with new modifications. Dr. Rossi hovered nearby, monitoring their vital signs with growing concern. Remember, she cautioned, at the first sign of trouble, we're pulling you out. The couple nodded, clasping hands as they synchronized their bioenergetic fields. The chamber hummed with power, lights flickering as energy coursed through the hybrid systems. Empathic link extending, a technician announced, her voice filled with awe. Contact established with the Galactic Council fleet. Raymond and Uma gasped in unison as alien consciousness flooded their minds. Images, emotions, and fragments of thought cascaded through their shared awareness. Across the planet, hybrid individuals reported flashes of alien perceptions, while the approaching fleet systems momentarily faltered. In the control room, Hawkins watched tensely as data streamed across multiple screens. What's happening out there? He demanded. Dr. Rossi's eyes darted between readouts. They're exchanging information at an incredible rate. The Galactic Council is learning about our situation, and Raymond and Uma are gaining insights into their motivations. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours as the empathic link pulsed with intensity. Raymond and Uma's bioluminescent patterns flared brilliantly, visible even through their containment suits. Suddenly, alarms blared. Bioenergetic output approaching critical levels, Dr. Rossi shouted. The containment suits are failing. Hawkins's hand hovered over the emergency shutdown control. How much longer do they need? Before Dr. Rossi could respond, the chamber's energy signature began to stabilize. On the main screen, the approaching fleet's trajectory changed. "They're decelerating," the sensor operator announced, disbelief evident in his voice. As the empathic link faded, Raymond and Uma slumped in their restraints, utterly spent. Medical teams rushed to their aid as Dr. Rossi frantically assessed their condition. Captain Hawkins turned to his communications officer. "Status report. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council fleet. They're requesting to open diplomatic channels." A collective sigh of relief swept through the control room, but Hawkins remained tense. "Keep all defense systems on high alert. This isn't over yet." As Raymond and Uma were carefully extracted from the chamber, their eyes met. Despite their exhaustion, a spark of hope shone in their gaze. They had opened a door, but the real challenge of bridging the gap between Earth and the galactic community was just beginning. The couple's eyes widened as they absorbed the gravity of the situation. "We need to act fast," Raymond said, his voice gaining strength despite his exhaustion. "If we can establish a deeper connection with the fleet, we might be able to prevent any misunderstandings." Uma nodded in agreement, her hybrid physiology already working to restore her energy. "We can do more than just communicate. We can show them who we are, what Earth has become." Captain Hawkins considered their proposal for a moment before nodding sharply. "Do it, but we're keeping all defensive measures active, just in case." As Raymond and Uma were guided back to the modified chamber, Dr. Rossi and her team rushed to make the necessary adjustments. The couple's containment suits gleamed with new enhancements, designed to channel their evolving abilities more efficiently. "Remember," Dr. Rossi cautioned as she helped them into position, "your physiology is still changing. We don't fully understand the limits of your capabilities." Raymond and Uma exchanged a determined look before closing their eyes and joining hands. The chamber hummed to life, bioenergetic fields pulsing in sync with their heartbeats. Outside, the Galactic Council fleet entered Earth's orbit, their massive ships casting shadows over the planet's surface. Hybrid peacekeeping force units maintained their defensive positions, tense and ready for any outcome. Within Nexus Prime, Dr. Xander Voss worked feverishly with a group of volunteers, applying his latest research to replicate the bond between Raymond and Uma. Human-alien pairs stood in specially designed pods, their nervous systems interconnected through a web of glowing Luminari tech. "Initiating bonding sequence," Dr. Voss announced, his fingers flying across a holographic interface. The volunteers gasped in unison as the modified Krenim compound flowed through their systems, forging new neural pathways between the pairs. As the bonding procedure progressed, alarms blared throughout the facility. Captain Hawkins sprinted to the main control room, his face grim. Multiple attacks reported worldwide. A communications officer shouted over the chaos. "Anti-hybrid extremists are targeting key installations and hybrid communities." Hawkins's teeth gritted as he assessed the situation. "Deploy all available hybrid peacekeeping force units. Priority is protecting civilians and maintaining our global defense network." In the chamber, Raymond and Uma's empathic link flared to life, stretching across the vast distance between Earth and the approaching fleet. Their minds touched alien consciousness, a cascade of images and emotions flooding their shared awareness. Through their connection, they conveyed Earth's journey, the challenges, the triumphs, and the potential for a new era of cooperation. The Galactic Council representatives, initially wary, found themselves immersed in humanity's collective hopes and fears. As the empathic exchange deepened, Dr. Rossi monitored the couple's vital signs with growing concern. "Their bioenergetic output is off the charts," she reported, her voice tight with worry. "We need to stabilize them before." Her words were cut off as Raymond and Uma's containment suits began to glow, their bodies surrounded by a shimmering field of energy. The chamber system struggled to contain the surge, alarms blaring as power fluctuated throughout Nexus Prime. In the bonding lab, Dr. Voss's newly linked pairs suddenly straightened, their eyes glowing with an inner light. Without a word, they moved in perfect synchronization, their combined abilities creating a localized empathic field that spread through the facility. Captain Hawkins felt a wave of alien thoughts and emotions wash over him, providing startling clarity about the Galactic Council's intentions. He turned to his communications officer, his voice steady despite the strange sensation. "Open a channel to the fleet," he ordered. "I think we're ready to talk." As Hawkins prepared for the unprecedented diplomatic contact, reports flooded in from around the globe. Hybrid peacekeeping force units, bolstered by their newly enhanced abilities, swiftly neutralized the extremist threats. The coordinated defense showcased Earth's progress in managing hybrid powers and maintaining global security. In orbit, the Galactic Council fleet's formation shifted, moving from an offensive stance to a more neutral position. A transmission crackled through Nexus Prime's communication systems. "This is High Counselor Zunra," a melodious alien voice announced. "We request permission to send a diplomatic delegation to your facility. It seems we have much to discuss." Hawkins exchanged glances with Dr. Rossi, who nodded her assent. "Permission granted, High Counselor," he replied. "We welcome the opportunity for peaceful dialogue." As preparations for the diplomatic summit began, Raymond and Uma slowly regained consciousness. They blinked in unison, their eyes filled with a new understanding of their place in the galactic community. "We did it," Uma whispered, her voice filled with awe. "They're listening." Raymond squeezed her hand, a small smile playing on his lips. "This is just the beginning," he said softly. "We have so much more to show them." As the couple was helped from the chamber, Dr. Rossi's team swarmed around them, conducting rapid scans and tests. The results flashed across her datapad, causing her eyes to widen in amazement. "Their hybrid physiology," she murmured. "It's evolving at an exponential rate. The empathic link seems to have accelerated their genetic adaptations." Captain Hawkins approached, his face a mix of relief and grit. "I'm glad you're both all right," he said. "But we need you for one more task. The Galactic Council delegates will be arriving soon, and your abilities could be crucial in ensuring a successful negotiation." Raymond and Uma nodded, their fatigue forgotten in the face of this historic moment. As they were led to a secure briefing room, the facility buzzed with activity. Security protocols were enhanced, diplomatic quarters prepared, and communication systems upgraded to accommodate both human and alien technologies. Outside Nexus Prime, a crowd of humans and hybrids gathered, their faces turned skyward in anticipation. The Galactic Council's shuttle descended through the atmosphere, its sleek form a testament to advanced alien engineering. As Earth stood on the brink of a new era in interstellar relations, Raymond and Uma prepared to once again bridge the gap between worlds. The true test of humanity's place in the galactic community was about to begin. As Raymond and Uma stood at the threshold of this historic moment, the air around them seemed to crackle with possibility. The couple took their positions once more in the modified chamber, their hands clasped tightly as they prepared to establish the deepest connection yet with the Galactic Council. Dr. Rossi's team worked feverishly, adjusting settings and monitoring readouts as the chamber hummed to life. "Remember," Dr. Rossi cautioned, her voice tight with a mixture of excitement and anxiety, "we're pushing the boundaries of what we know about your abilities. Stay focused and alert us at the first sign of distress." Raymond and Uma nodded in unison, their eyes locking for a brief moment before closing. As the empathic link engaged, their bioluminescent patterns began to pulse in perfect synchronization. The chamber's energy signature spiked, sending ripples of power through Nexus Prime systems. Outside the facility, the gathered crowd gasped in awe as the night sky erupted in a dazzling display of light. Hybrids across the globe reported a surge of connection, their own bioluminescent patterns responding to the powerful empathic broadcast emanating from Nexus Prime. In orbit, The Galactic Council representatives found themselves immersed in a sea of human consciousness. Images, emotions, and memories flowed between species, creating a shared understanding that transcended language and culture. Captain Hawkins watched the main screen with rapt attention as data streamed in from around the world. "It's not just Raymond and Uma," he murmured, all creeping into his voice. "The entire hybrid population is linking up. We're seeing a global empathic network forming in real time." Dr. Rossi's eyes widened as she processed the implications. "It's amplifying their connection to the Council. This is beyond anything we could have anticipated." Within the chamber, Raymond and Uma's physical forms seemed to blur, their bodies surrounded by a shimmering field of energy. Their bioluminescent patterns merged, creating intricate designs that pulsed with life and meaning. Through their shared consciousness, they felt a shift in the Galactic Council's perception. Walls of mistrust and caution crumbled, replaced by a growing sense of kinship and understanding. High Counselor Zilnara's voice resonated through the empathic link, filling the minds of Raymond, Uma, and every connected hybrid on Earth. "We have witnessed the true spirit of humanity," the alien leader declared. "Your capacity for growth, adaptation, and unity is unlike anything we have encountered in our travels across the galaxy." A wave of emotion swept through the global network as Zilnara continued. "The Galactic Council hereby recognizes Earth's readiness for full integration into the galactic community. We offer our knowledge, our technology, and our partnership as you continue to develop your remarkable potential." In a gesture that sent shockwaves through Earth's defense systems, the Galactic Council fleet powered down their weapons arrays. The massive ships, once perceived as a threat, now hung in orbit as a symbol of trust and cooperation. As the empathic link began to subside, Uma turned to Raymond, her eyes shining with a mix of joy and long-held secrets. "There's something I need to tell you," she said softly. "Something I've carried with me since the beginning." Raymond listened in stunned silence as Uma revealed the truth behind her initial volunteering in Dr. Rossi's biology class. The anatomy study that had brought them together was, in fact, the first step in a carefully orchestrated luminary plan to guide humanity's evolution. "We knew that Earth needed to be prepared for this moment," Uma explained, her voice filled with emotion. "The Luminari have been working for generations to help humanity reach its full potential. You, Raymond, were the key we didn't know we were looking for." As the couple emerged from the chamber, their bodies still glowing faintly, they were met with a scene of controlled chaos. Dr. Rossi and Captain Hawkins approached, their faces a mix of elation and uncertainty. "We received a formal invitation from the Galactic Council," Hawkins announced. "They're requesting Earth send its first official ambassadors to their homeworld to help establish protocols for future human-alien interactions." Dr. Rossi smiled warmly at Raymond and Uma. "I can't think of anyone better suited for the role." As news of the impending diplomatic mission spread, Nexus Prime buzzed with activity. The couple underwent a whirlwind of briefings, medical examinations, and crash courses in galactic etiquette. Through it all, their bond remained unshakable, their bioluminescent patterns often synchronizing unconsciously. The day of departure arrived with a mixture of anticipation and bittersweet farewells. Raymond and Uma stood at the base of the sleek ambassadorial ship provided by the Galactic Council, its hull shimmering with technology beyond human understanding. Dr. Rossi approached, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You've come so far from that first day in my classroom," she said, embracing them both. "Remember, no matter how far you travel, you'll always have a home here." Captain Hawkins shook their hands firmly. "You're carrying the hopes of humanity with you," he said, his gruff voice softer than usual. "Make us proud out there." As Raymond and Uma prepared to board the ship, they paused for a moment, turning to face the assembled crowd. Their hands clasped tightly and their bioluminescent patterns burst into life, forming intricate, loving designs that spoke volumes about their connection. The couple ascended the ramp, their figures silhouetted against the ship's interior lights. As the hatch began to close, Raymond and Uma shared a final look with their friends and colleagues. No words were needed. The empathic link they all shared conveyed everything left unsaid. The ambassadorial ship's engines hummed to life, lifting off with a grace that seemed to defy Earth's gravity. It rose steadily, joining the Galactic Council fleet in orbit. As the ships prepared for departure, the night sky erupted in a brilliant display of light. Hybrids across the globe activated their bioluminescence in a collective farewell, creating a radiant beacon visible even from space. As Earth grew smaller in the viewport, Raymond and Uma stood hand in hand, their bodies resonating with the hum of the ship's advanced systems. They were leaving behind the world they knew, embarking on a journey that would shape the future of human-alien relations. The anatomy study that had brought them together had led to this moment, the beginning of humanity's grand adventure among the stars. The fleet engaged its faster-than-light drives, and in a dazzling burst of energy, Earth vanished from view. Raymond and Uma's new life as ambassadors of humanity had begun, carrying with them the hopes, dreams, and potential of their entire species.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.